Chapter 2640. I killed my father. Do you feel good about it? Ha! Cloud Master said despicably. I'm not afraid to tell you that I actually feel very good too. He brought me to this world, and I sent him away from this world. Isn't this the best repayment? Isn't this me sending him off in his old age? The Demon Empress turned her head away in disgust. Everyone swallowed a mouthful of saliva. The words, sending him off in his old age, could actually be interpreted in such a way. This world was really big. There were widows every year, but not as many as this year. Faced with such shameless words, and coming from the mouth of Cloud Master, the saint who had been the most powerful person in the world for 1,000,000 years, everyone felt especially intolerable. You even dared to kill your own father! You were even willing to kill him! And you did it without any guilt at all. Shui Leihan's eyes were filled with deep sorrow. He said softly, Then it's no wonder that you would kill your own father-in-law and swallow the assets of someone who had done you a great favor. Sigh. Cloud Master, you're really a piece of trash, a complete piece of trash. Cloud Master frowned and said angrily, What are you saying? Shui Leihan's eyes were cold. He said, I'm saying, you're a complete piece of trash. Cloud Lord chuckled. Trash? In this world, who isn't trash? Cloud Master looked up and laughed. Who didn't grow up from a piece of trash? For example, you and Chu Yang. In the beginning, weren't you just a piece of trash? Or rather, an ant? But even though you've grown until now, you're still trash. In this lifetime, you'll always be trash. Shui Leihan's lips were a little green. At this moment, Shui Leihan thought of his Shui clan. It was all because of this person in front of him. Disintegrated. But this person was actually such a despicable person. His father, brothers, family, little sister, their lives were all ruined by this person. The anger in Shui Leihan's heart at this moment was really incomparable. Suddenly, a sword light flashed. Cloud Master. Today, you and I will fight to the death. Cloud Master dodged, tilting his head and smiling. You seem to hate me a lot? Why? Did I kill your whole family and rape your sister? Shui Leihan. I don't understand. You've always been against me. What enmity do I have with you? Shui Leihan's eyes widened, his chest heaving up and down. But he still said, Let me ask you. What exactly happened to the purple cloud heavens back then? Cloud Master laughed loudly. Don't you know the reason? You were there many times back then. See how threatened me so many times back then. That bastard, am I someone he can threaten? How dare you threaten me to not enter the Shui clan? How dare you threaten me not to marry Shui Sienna? He actually threatened to kill me. Ha! Can he kill me? In the end, didn't I kill him? He laughed complacently. I've used a little trick and I've made that bastard Zihao die an unnatural death. He died with everlasting regret. He looked up to the sky and howled. In the Heaven Imperial Court. No one can threaten me. No. There wasn't one in the past, and there wouldn't be one in the future. You, Shui Leihan. You, Yao Xianer, you, Chu Yang, all of you, and all of you, will die. Not a single one of them can live. He looked up to the sky and roared, as if he had gone mad. The look in his eyes became ruthless and violent, flashing with a faint black light. But he was obviously laughing happily. Yes, he didn't feel the slightest bit of guilt for everything he had done. There was only joy. Shui Leihan calmed down at once. You've used a little trick? The saint panted heavily and laughed strangely. That's right. Back then, your cultivation had already reached a bottleneck and couldn't break through for a long time. Then, didn't you get a firmament technique? That secret manual is good stuff. It's your opportunity to break through the bottleneck, right? Then, you went into seclusion. And you couldn't come out even after you went into seclusion. Even if I forcefully interrupted you, it's impossible, right? Ha! Shui Leihan felt cold all over. You! The saint laughed wildly, rocking back and forth. That secret manual was given to you by me. The restriction inside was also set up by me. Ha! Shuelehan, do you really think you've discovered an ancient relic? Do you really think you're so lucky? Ha! What a joke! The great East Sovereign, ha 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 ha. Shuelehan's face was ashen. So, that seclusion he went into seclusion back then was a scheme of the saint. After you got the firmament technique, I immediately informed the extraterrestrial demons. Zi Xiaotian and Zi Hao completely lost the help of the outside world. The saint, Venerable Master Yun, no longer had any scruples and said everything. These were obviously the things he was proud of in his life, and had always been buried in his heart. He had long felt that he was going to go crazy from holding it in. He actually didn't share such a proud thing with anyone. Wasn't that casting pearls before swine? Walking in the dark? Now that all his identities and secrets had been exposed, there was no point in hiding them anymore. Moreover, after today, he, the only saint, would probably become a rat despised by everyone in the heavenly imperial court. By then, there wouldn't be a chance to say anything anymore. He might as well say it all out today. No matter what, he could still be happy. To let others know about his proud things, especially to see their regretful expressions, was what the saint looked forward to the most. As expected, he wasn't disappointed. I told the extraterrestrial demons that Zi Xiaotian already had no roots. He. Moreover, this was the most suitable place for them. If they succeeded, the other heavens and earth in the heavenly imperial court wouldn't join forces to encircle and annihilate them. Those extraterrestrial demons indeed sent troops to invade Zi Xiaotian. Venerable Master Yun's face, which had always been calm and peaceful, was now filled with extreme evil, insidious and poisonous. Then, during the war, I personally rushed to Zi Xiaotian and told Zi Hao an important piece of information. The extraterrestrial demons invaded this time because they wanted to fight a decisive battle and dominate the entire heavenly imperial court. Our heavenly imperial court was actively preparing for war. Once the time was right, we would launch a decisive battle with the extraterrestrial demons. But before the time was right, we needed Zi Hao to hold on. The saint's words made everyone sigh. With Zi Hao's heroic spirit, how could he take a step back after knowing such a thing? He was destined to hold on until the last moment. But when he finally understood that all this was the saint's scheme, everything was too late. Even if he wanted to retreat, it was already too late. Because there were already so many brothers who had died in the battle at Purple Cloud Heavens. Only because he believed the words of a villain. Even if he had the ability to escape, he would definitely not stay out of it. Therefore, the tragedy of the Purple Cloud Heavenly Emperor was destined just like that. At that time, it was already impossible to change. There were provisions for the internal affairs and no reinforcements for the external affairs. During that period of time, all the big worlds were in chaos, to the extent that the people had no way of making a living. Did you think that those were all coincidences? Ha! Those were all caused by me. Zi Hao is indeed amazing. The saint chuckled. I originally thought that it would take at most a year's time for the entire Purple Cloud Heavens to fall. But I didn't expect that Zi Hao actually held on for as long as a year. Just a little bit more and he could hold on until you, Shuelehan, came out of seclusion. But in the end, you still didn't come out in time. The saint laughed maniacally. Aren't you sworn brothers with Zi Hao? Aren't you good brothers who entrusted their lives to each other? Why didn't you appear when your brothers died? Shuelehan, ha ha ha. Even if you hate me, what can you do? For these 1,000,000 years, you wanted to kill me every moment, but did you manage to do it? Perhaps today is the closest you've ever been to your goal, but you only managed to do it by relying on the help of many outsiders. Is this your ability? You remember your brother's revenge, but you're destined to never be able to avenge them. You'll never be able to avenge them. The saint's maniacal laughter was like sharp awls piercing into Shuelehan's heart. My brother's revenge. No revenge for 1,000,000 years. Only now did the truth come to light. Shuelehan looked at Zi Xiecheng with a gaze full of guilt. The saint's gaze also followed and looked over. He couldn't understand why Shui Leihan would look at this young girl with such guilt. Xi Xiecheng said proudly, "Uncle Shui, you don't have to blame yourself. My father died protecting purple cloud heavens. That was his territory in the first place, where his responsibility lay. I can feel that my father still had no regrets in that great battle until his death. For the sake of purple cloud heavens, he was worth it. As for Uncle Shui not being able to go because you were tricked, you can only blame Cloud Lord for being too despicable. The main culprit is Cloud Lord, only a despicable person like him. This piece of trash has nothing to do with Uncle Shui. The brotherhood between Uncle Shui and my father is clear as day. No one can change it," Xi Xiecheng said resolutely. Shui Leihan's beard trembled. For a moment, he actually felt hot in his heart, almost glistening with tears. The saint was suddenly tongue-tied. He looked at Xi Xiecheng as if he had seen a ghost. You! You're actually Zihao's daughter?" In that instant, he felt his mind go blank. He really didn't expect that the heavenly emperor of purple cloud heavens, Zihao, actually left behind a daughter when the entire army of purple cloud heavens was wiped out. "I'll let you know!" The demon empress stared at Cloud Lord with extreme disgust. "This child in front of you is the daughter of the heavenly emperor of purple cloud Zihao and sister Ling Piaoping. She's also the only direct descendant of the heavenly emperor of purple cloud left in this world. Heaven always blesses kind people, but it definitely won't bless a beast like you. Back then, you caused the destruction of the heavenly emperor of purple cloud's family. Now, the daughter of the heavenly emperor of purple cloud has personally witnessed your fall from grace. This can be considered as karma," the demon empress said coldly. "This also proves that, Cloud Lord, your path has come to an end. Today, it's time for you to repay the blood debt. Cloud Lord, surrender yourself." I always thought that the 1st of August would be the gathering of comrades. I didn't expect that the few of us would set the gathering to be today. I was scolded just now. I'll go quickly. I'll come back tonight and write my story according to the situation. Chapter 2641. Master Yun's eyes widened in disbelief as he stared at Xi Xiecheng. Suddenly, the look in his eyes slowly changed from shock and disbelief to viciousness and malevolence. "So, Zihao actually still has a bastard child left in this world. Forget it, let me end his life completely today and let him live in regret in the afterlife." The demon Empress Dongwang and all his brothers stepped forward at the same time. The 5 fairy gods' eyes also turned sharp instantly. Now, the illusion of the fairy empress was related to the white light on Xi Xiecheng. This bastard actually wanted to destroy Xi Xiecheng? Wasn't this equivalent to destroying the last trace of the fairy empress? They had to kill him even if they had to risk their lives. The archer god's bow was fully drawn. This arrow was different from all the previous ones. The archer god had even fused his life and soul into the arrow. This was an arrow that risked his life. In front of me, who dares to hurt my baby, my Qiongxiao? The dark god's figure disappeared again. Obviously, he had returned to the darkness, and was ready to launch a fatal attack. At this moment, all 5 of the elven gods were bristling with rage. As long as the Cloud Master dared to move, they would dare to risk their lives. "Cloud Master, you're courting death!" Chu Yang snorted coldly. Are you worthy? Kill!" The Cloud Master suddenly jumped up. With a shake of his body, he and his sword turned into thousands of rays of light and rushed toward Xi Xiecheng. "Break!" The archer god shouted and spat out a mouthful of blood. He had launched his ultimate arrow. The moonlight in the sky followed the release of this arrow. It suddenly shone brightly. Puff, 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 puff. The archer god's arrow pierced through the countless illusions and rays of light created by the saint. The next moment, the saint shouted. His body, which was moving at full speed, suddenly flashed and twisted. He actually appeared in the sky far away. There was a transparent hole on his shoulder. The archer god's arrow actually injured his actual body in the almost endless illusions. This was something that was almost impossible to do. Yet, the fairy archer god did it. The archer god spat out blood and lay on the ground. He could no longer move. But his arrow that risked his life. However, he had already severely injured Cloud Master. Almost at the same time, Shui Leihan's Grand Orient sword flew up like a rainbow. Chu Yang's Calamity sword also turned into a ray of flowing light. The Demon Empress Demon King Hook also scattered demonic aura all over the sky. Xie Danqiong's Jasper Flower Heaven suddenly bloomed. Rui Butong's Nirvana Flame burned the world. And Mo Tianji's Purple Jade Flute covered the sky and covered the earth. GMO and Luo Kadi became one with their swords. Everyone attacked with all their might. Another illusory figure appeared beside the sage. It was the elf dark god who was attacking with all his might. As for the other three fairy gods, they turned into three streams of light and charged forward. All the experts reappeared at the same time as the Cloud Lord's arrow. Launch a counterattack. There was only one goal. The only holy monarch, Cloud Lord. Cloud Lord attacked Zixieqing. This was tantamount to crossing everyone's bottom line. No matter who he attacked, he might not be able to create such an effect. But his target was Zixieqing. In fact, Cloud Lord didn't expect that Zixieqing was closely related to everyone present at this moment. The Purple Cloud Heavenly Emperor's daughter that he wanted to kill was now the incarnation of the Fairy Empress, Chu Yang's wife, Tribulation's sister-in-law, and the East Emperor Demon Empress niece. Once he moved, the East Emperor Demon Empress, the elf race, and Tribulation's brothers all started to fight with all their might. The sage, who was surrounded by countless attacks, frantically dodged, counterattacked, and escaped. But in this short period of time, he had been attacked by so many experts at the same time. How could he not be flustered? In this world, he believed that there was no one who could block so many attacks at the same time in an orderly manner. At least, only the sage Cloud Lord couldn't. With such attacks, not to mention one Cloud Lord, even if there were two more Cloud Lords, they would definitely not be able to block it. This time, it was as if Cloud Lord had provoked the craziest hornet's nest in this world. Even though he was the #1 expert in the world, he was still in a very sorry state. Blood and flesh splattered everywhere. Cloud Lord howled miserably at the sky. Amidst the frenzied parries, dodges, and chaotic movements, GMO let out a cry of agony and was the first to be sent flying. He coughed up a mouthful of blood, but his sword had already been left on Guru Yun's body. Luo Kadi and GMO both coughed up blood and retreated at almost the same time. Luo Kadi's sword was still in his hand, but before he retreated, he left behind a gaping wound that was half a foot long on the great sage's body, so deep that his bones could be seen. The East Emperor watched the battle and looked for a chance to enter. Without any hesitation, he clashed with Cloud Lord's palm. Both of them spat out blood at the same time and leaned back. Xie Danqiong's viburnum flower took the opportunity to bloom on Cloud Lord's back. The viburnum flower emperor retreated after she succeeded. She wasn't greedy and didn't suffer any counterattacks. There was also a strange snake-shaped weapon that pierced through Cloud Lord's thigh. However, the owner of the snake-shaped weapon, the Dark Deity, wasn't as lucky as Xie Danqiong. He took a kick and was sent flying. The Demon King's hook forced the mountain and river soared away. The Demon Empress' snow-white palm struck out and smashed onto Cloud Lord's chest like a huge hammer. Cloud Lord suffered another heavy blow. He screamed and retreated desperately. He borrowed the force of the attack and tried to break free from the Demon Empress' attacks. However, the group of people in the air didn't want to let up. They entangled with each other and rolled out for thousands of feet in an instant. Chu Yang's Calamity sword finally found an opportunity. With one strike, it chopped off one of Cloud Lord's shoulders. However, the moment that arm fell off, it swayed in the wind and turned into another Cloud Lord. His face was the same as before. He pounced forward fiercely, and used his body to block the Calamity sword. Such a strange technique was truly shocking. After a part of the body left the body, it could turn into his own appearance to block the Calamity? This was undoubtedly another trump card of the Saint Lord. Chu Zhang didn't slow down or hesitate. He swung the Calamity Sword no less than 1,000 times. The devouring power was also activated at the same time. Fortunately, the Cloud Lord formed by the arm looked exactly the same as Cloud Lord. The power that it could unleash wasn't high. Not only was it far inferior to Cloud Lord himself, but it couldn't even compare to the clone. Chu Yang attacked fiercely with the Calamity Sword. With the help of the devouring power, this clone was cut into pieces in an instant. Chu Yang was afraid that there would be more trouble in the future. He poured a lot of energy into the Calamity Sword, and the sword energy became even more intense. He vaporized all the fragments and turned them into nothingness. He didn't expect to hit the jackpot. This vaporized state was even more beneficial for the devouring power of the Calamity Sword. It devoured the Saint Lord's severed arm and replenished a lot of energy. It greatly replenished Chu Yang's energy that was about to be depleted. Mo Tianji's purple jade flute turned into a purple ocean. Finally, he tapped Cloud Lord's forehead with the flute. A bloody hole immediately appeared on Cloud Lord's forehead. It was a shocking sight. Mo Tianji rarely attacked, but when he did, he would definitely succeed. This was especially so at this moment. However, while he succeeded, Cloud Lord's counterattack was also fierce. His remaining arm struck Mo Tianji's chest 3 times in a row. However, the moment Mo Tianji retreated, blood spurted out of his mouth. Cloud Lord's right eye had already been blinded by the purple jade flute. The arrow god shot another arrow, and it pierced through Cloud Lord's back. This arrow was the arrow god's soul-chasing arrow. It was extremely vicious and deadly. Cloud Lord attacked fiercely again. He suddenly roared, and his broken body suddenly exploded. He cried out in extreme pain. "I will definitely take revenge for today." Before he finished speaking, there was a sudden boom. His entire body turned into smoke that filled the sky. The smoke billowed all the way to the north. Chu Yang's Calamity Sword, Xue Leihan's Grand Orient Sword, the Demon Empress's Demon King Hook, and Xie Danxiong's Viburnum Flower all shot into the sky at the same time. They tried their best to surround and suppress the smoke that filled the sky. The 4 experts started to wipe out the smoke together. At this moment, another streak of red light flew over like lightning. It was Mo Qingwu's Qingwu Dream Saber. However, there seemed to be other colors on the Qingwu Dream Saber this time. It was Chu Lure's poison that attacked together with Mo Qingwu's saber. The 5 divine weapons unleashed their own characteristics at the same time, and the smoke dissipated instantly. A scream seemed to come from the depths of one's soul. In the next moment, a strong wind rose from the ground, and a streak of smoke shot into the sky. Then, with a boom, it turned into air. However, the Calamity Sword still flew into the sky, relentlessly chasing after it. Smack! A streak of light fell from the sky. An extremely furious shout came from the void. It was Cloud Lord's voice. The clouds in the sky dissipated in all directions. The wind swept away the clouds, leaving no trace. Cloud Lord's body disappeared just like that. Only one streak of light fell straight from the sky. With a clang, it landed on a huge rock. The huge rock couldn't withstand the heavy blow, and instantly shattered. It was a sword that fell from the sky. Apart from shattering the rock, it was still stuck in the ground shakily. Although only half of it was exposed, it was still shining brightly. It was the weapon that I, Cloud Lord, had never let go of in my life. The Mountain River Sword. The #1 divine weapon in the Imperial Court. This sword was also the only divine weapon that could collide with the Calamity Sword and remain unscathed. The #1 divine weapon in the Imperial Court lived up to its name. This battle had actually caused Master Cloud's personal weapon to be lost here. Looking at this sword, Xue Leihan and the Demon Empress both had complicated expressions. Besides being the #1 divine weapon in the Imperial Court, this sword was also the symbol of supreme power in the Imperial Court. The Mountain River Sword. It represented loyalty, the Imperial Court, the mountains and rivers, and the human heart. However, such a divine weapon, which was supposed to be the embodiment of justice and justice, had fallen into the hands of people like Master Cloud for over 1,000,000 years. This is the mountain river sword? GMO walked over curiously. The #1 weapon in the Imperial Court? Don't touch this sword, Shui Leihan hurriedly reminded him. Before he finished speaking, the mountain and river sword shook violently. Then, a cloud of snow-white smoke flowed out from the sword. A desolate voice that seemed to be filled with endless sorrow and disappointment sighed. Yu Zhixie has been oppressed for too long. How can he still have the face to exist in this world? Chapter 2642. Then, the smoke suddenly dispersed, turning into thousands of thin wisps of smoke and dissipating in the air. Pa 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 pa, just like that, the mountain and river sword swayed, but starting from the hilt, it started to crack inch by inch. Gradually, this #1 divine sword that had shaken the heavens and symbolized supreme power for millions of years turned into fine powder just like that. A pile of metal scraps. That sigh seemed to sound in everyone's hearts. The moment the mountain and river sword shattered, Shui Leihan and the others clearly felt a sense of guilt from the mountain and river sword itself. The heroic spirits that had existed in the mountain and river sword for millions of years finally dissipated. They were very guilty and very angry. As the symbol of justice, the representative of justice, as the supreme existence, they were used by such a despicable and shameless person for so long. With this thought, these heroic spirits would rather destroy themselves and not return to the world. To thank the world. From now on, there will be no supreme symbol of power in the world anymore. There will be no more mountain and river sword. A desolate voice sounded faintly. Then, the sound of wind suddenly rose. Everyone only felt their vision clear up. The mountain and river sword was destroyed, and the heroic spirit of the sword also destroyed itself out of shame and regret, dissipating from the world. The East Emperor and the Demon Empress had deep gazes. Both of them bowed deeply at the same time, bidding farewell to the heroic spirit. At the same time, they let out a long sigh. Mo Tianji muttered, From now on, there will be no more supreme symbol of power in the world, no more mountain and river sword. He seemed to have understood something. He said softly, If there really is no such power in the world, if there really is no such symbol, for the Celestial Imperial Court, this might not be a bad thing, right? Everyone fell silent upon hearing this. Regarding this question, no one could say for sure. But their hearts. They all felt a heartfelt sense of pity. Divine weapons had spirits and also self-esteem. He was unwilling to be controlled by others, and even more unwilling to be used by bad people for so long. In order to prove his innocence, in order to prove something, he was determined to destroy himself. A sword was already like this. Where was he? But no matter what. After this battle, Cloud Master's vitality was undoubtedly greatly damaged. His physical body was almost completely destroyed. And this time, it was his main body that was injured. The injuries that originated from the body were definitely not something that could be healed in a short period of time. And his divine weapon, the mountain river sword, was no longer in his hands. This was equivalent to reducing his strength. Once again, it was greatly weakened. If he were to encounter it again in the future, the danger would definitely be reduced by a lot, right? Thinking of this, everyone was more or less relieved. Immediately send a message to the world and announce to the Heavenly Imperial Court that only our sage monarch, Master Yun, will be witnessed by the Eastern Sovereign, the Demon Empress, Emperor Mo, and the 5 gods of the elf race. They will confirm that he is the master behind the myriad holy true spirit. As for his identity, he is the son of the previous generations. Myriad saints true devil! The Demon Empress immediately thought of this and said, When facing such an evil person, the Demon Empress will not be able to escape. Everyone in the entire Heaven Imperial Court has the right to punish him. Not bad. Shui Leihan immediately came to a realization. He looked at Xie Danqiong and said, This time, other than the people here, we also need to announce to the world at the same time that we're removing the title of the saint. The Demon Empress looked at Mo Tianji. Mo Tianji rubbed his nose and said with a smile, I can guarantee that all 10 worlds will know about this news at the same time. Furthermore, I can guarantee that before Master Yun continues to confuse right and wrong, even if he tries to quibble, it'll be useless. Oh? The demon empress was a little surprised. After the archer god pointed out that Master Yun is the myriad holy true spirit and confirmed the evidence. I've already spread this news. At this moment, it might have already spread to the various branches of the intelligence department. Emotianji smiled and said, Therefore, I believe that before Master Yun reaches home, he will realize that he's no longer the number one person in Heaven Imperial Court. He's just a rat crossing the street and has no chance to fight back. Shui Leihan and the Demon Empress were both stunned. You spread the news before the battle ended? Of course, I had to spread the news as soon as possible, Emotianji said. I think the Tianji Intelligence Department, which is closer to this place, has already started to announce this to the world. In another 6 hours at most, there won't be any major force in the entire Imperial Court that doesn't know about this matter, including the purple cloud heavens. The muscles on Shui Leihan's face twitched. This guy is really ruthless. Furthermore, I also vaguely reminded that the entire world should boycott the Holy Emperor Palace. There are rumors that any forces that don't boycott the Holy Emperor Palace may be his subordinate forces. Emotianji grinned and said, Therefore, I reckon that at this moment, many of the branches of the Holy Emperor Palace should have already been smashed into pieces. The closer the original forces of the Holy Emperor Palace are to this place, the faster they'll be destroyed. The corners of the Demon Empress' eyes also twitched. This guy Emotianji is really very dangerous. He's always done everything in advance. There's no need for anyone to say anything. Everything is under his control. Everything is perfect and flawless. When Shui Leihan raised his head, he realized that the 5 elven gods were no longer beside him. Chu Yang was also rushing back. On the battlefield just now, the 4 rays of light were still shining. Everyone's heart skipped a beat, and they all rushed back. They saw that the battlefield had already been cleaned up by the 5 elven gods. So many corpses and blood that flowed like a river just now were nowhere to be seen. Even, the whole place was already filled with fresh flowers, like a sea of flowers. Mo Qingwu and the other 3 girls were standing in the center. In midair, the figure of the Elven Empress was still there. She looked at the southern sky forest with a gaze full of longing and reluctance, as if she was full of endless emotions. Qiong Xiao. The archer god's voice was trembling. You're finally willing to come back and take a look? The Elven Empress' eyes were actually a little dazed at this moment. Because everyone was looking at her, including Chu Yang. No one dared to be sure. Was this Elven Empress who suddenly appeared just a projection of her divine soul without consciousness? Or was it a barely remaining divine soul doppelganger? The Elven Empress turned her head and locked her gaze on Chu Yang's face. All of a sudden, a smile like a spring flower appeared on her face. The Elven Emperor's seal on Chu Yang's forehead jumped again and gradually appeared. When the Elven Emperor's seal appeared, the Elven Empress' eyes became lively. Her body also became more solid. I'm sorry, Grandpa Archer God. The Elven Empress bowed slightly to the Archer God. Sob, sob, sob. The Archer God of the Elven race, whose name shook the world. At this moment, he actually burst into tears. Qiong Xiao. You've been away for so many years, and the first thing you say to me after you come back is I'm sorry? The Elven Empress' eyes glistened with tears. They were glistening. Grandpa Archer God, I don't have much time left. I want to say as much as I can. My current form may seem like a physical body. In fact, it's just a trace of consciousness that I left behind back then. I'm going to leave after saying what I want to say. The Elven Empress' voice was so weak that it made people want to comfort her involuntarily. The Archer God sobbed and stopped asking. The others were also very curious. What exactly was going on? Fortunately, the Elven Empress didn't have any requests to listen. When she saw everyone gather around, she didn't express any objections. So everyone listened together. Back then, I comprehended the laws of the elves. The Elven Empress began to speak softly. Everyone was listening attentively. When I was halfway through comprehending, I suddenly felt a little dispirited. The Elven Empress smiled bitterly. I realized that, although I'm an elf and the Elven Empress, I'm still a woman after all. So, I wanted to find a home that belonged to me, and that beautiful dream. So, I took the divine book of the elves and left the elven forest to come to the human world. However, I looked around and saw all the heroes in the world, but none of them caught my eye. The Elven Empress nodded apologetically at Shui Leihan. Her gaze was full of apology, obviously saying that Dong Wang, you're already very outstanding, but I didn't take a fancy to you. It's really not that you're not good enough, it's just that you didn't meet my expectations. Shui Leihan touched his nose very, very awkwardly. You're really too polite. You didn't take a fancy to me. Are you embarrassed? But when I nodded, why did I suddenly feel like I've become trash? Do you know how much helplessness I've endured? You've saved me a lot of trouble. Finally, one day, when I was comprehending the divine book of the elves in the land of thunder and rain, it seemed like a voice suddenly said something to me. There was an incomprehensible confusion on the Elven Empress' delicate little face. This voice said, Xiongxiao can't dance with the wind and clouds, the world of pride is in the heavens. The path of purity in this life is clear, and there will be a good marriage in the next life. The Elven Empress said, these 4 sentences have a mysterious origin. I never understood it, so I kept thinking about it. Then I finally understood. Xiongxiao can't dance with the wind and clouds. Yes, I'm Xiongxiao, but I can't dance with the wind and clouds because the wind and clouds are on me. So someone needs to dance with the wind and clouds above the Xiongxiao. And this is a human, not an elf. The world of pride is in the heavens. I once thought, is the heavens the short name of the heavens? But I didn't get anything until later. I accidentally learned from Dong Wang. There's actually another world in this world called the Heavens Continent. So that's the so-called heavens. The Elven Empress bowed to Shui Leihan. She was grateful for his guidance. But the god of archery and the other 5 elven gods looked at Shui Leihan fiercely as if they wanted to swallow him whole. Shui Leihan swallowed his saliva and thought, when did I tell you about the Heavens Continent? No matter how he thought about it, he still couldn't remember. The 3rd sentence, the path of purity in this life, meant that I'm destined to be lonely in this life, right? The Elven Empress looked at Zi Xieching and the others with yearning and envy in her eyes. She said, but the 4th sentence pushed the good marriage to the next life. Chapter 2643. No, no, no. I searched all the way and left the heavenly imperial court. I don't know how long I walked, but I found that I really went to the heavenly continent. What surprised me was that there were actually elves on this continent, but they were very weak. I lived on this continent and united the elves. Sometimes I thought to myself, with my cultivation, which is considered a master in the heavenly imperial court, what kind of danger could I encounter on this continent? I'm almost immortal, so what's the point of this life and the afterlife? At this point, the Elven Empress smiled bitterly. Finally, one day, that sword appeared. The Elven Empress looked at the calamity sword in Xu Yang's hand. Everyone's heart skipped a beat. Shui Leihan smiled bitterly. Sure enough, the root of the problem was back to the calamity sword. Actually, it was natural. With the Elven Empress's strength at the peak of the heavenly imperial court, she would be invincible in the heavenly continent without even needing to fight. If it wasn't for the calamity sword and its owner, how could there be an accident? The 5 elven gods also fixed their gazes on the calamity sword in Xu Yang's hand, with different expressions. Obviously, they didn't know what this sword had to do with what the Elven Empress said. That day, the heavenly continent suddenly collapsed without any warning. It was a catastrophic destruction that caused the most direct and complete destruction to the entire world and the entire plane. Then, someone used heaven-defying means to directly fold and reshape the heavenly continent. Until now, the means used by that mighty person are still completely beyond my understanding of power, or my survival instinct. And the last struggle of not wanting my fellow elves to die in front of me, I tried my best to lead all the elves to avoid the disaster, whether it was intentional or not. Anyway, that mighty person with heaven-defying abilities settled all the elves in a slightly more stable place. I can say with certainty that if it wasn't for that person's help, all the elves, including me, would have perished in that world-ending disaster. We were collectively settled in that new place, and we thought that the disaster was over. We thought that we could start a new life, but we didn't expect that the world would collapse again, and the end of the world would come again. The scale of this world-ending disaster was much smaller than the previous one. However, it was still not something that could be resisted by humans. Just as I was about to bring the elf race away from there and return to Heaven's imperial court, I realized that the chaos of creation could no longer be reversed. At least, there was nothing I could do about it. A voice that sounded like a sigh said to me, "I've ruined your present life, so I'll return you an afterlife." The elves were never spared. The entire race was annihilated, and I was only able to preserve the place where the elves lived, the city of elves. However, the spring of life that represents the reproduction of the elves has finally dried up. All of this represents the end. The elven empress voice was filled with exhaustion. Or perhaps there can be no construction without destruction. Anyway, it was at that time that I suddenly had an epiphany. I understood what I wanted. So I dispersed all of my cultivation to protect the lifeline of the Sky Elf clan. I dispersed the Elf Emperor's seal and only kept the last bit of my life in the land of slumber. On that day, I made an oath to the world: if anyone brings the spring of life to my place of slumber and brings light to the elven race, and brings hope to the elven race, I will bestow the Elven Emperor's seal to him, until one day I suddenly woke up in the land of eternal slumber. I didn't know about my afterlife, but I also didn't dream about those beautiful women anymore. Because, after experiencing life and death, all of this seemed so absurd. But finally, one day, this person came. His name is Chu Yang. He brought his sword and the spring of life to bring hope and light to the elves. Actually, at that time, the Elf Emperor's seal was already restless, and I also gave my approval. When I saw this person, I seemed to have a feeling. It seems that I've been waiting for him for a very, very long time. Or perhaps, it should be said that my slumber was to wait for his arrival. Now, the time that I've been waiting for is already in this life and the afterlife. Finally, the time that I've been waiting for has come, but it's already impossible for my life to recover. If I had met you in my youth back then, I would definitely have married you and become your most adorable wife. When the Elven Empress said this, her eyes looked deeply at Chu Yang. The tenderness in her eyes was boundless and undisguised. Chu Yang suddenly felt a sense of absent-mindedness and bitterness. Tears were already streaming down the faces of the 5 elven gods. We only knew that the elves stood aloof from worldly affairs and blindly let the elves live in seclusion. But we didn't know that such seclusion was actually equivalent to sealing off the human nature of the elves. Regardless of whether it's a human or an elf, when they're hungry, they have to eat. When they're thirsty, they have to drink water. When they're young, regardless of whether they're male or female, they all yearn for a love that belongs to them. The Elven Empress sighed softly. In the future, don't use external forces to control this kind of thing. Otherwise, the elves will be destroyed in this world sooner or later. Yes, the 5 elven gods replied in unison. The moment I saw him, I knew that it was already impossible for me. The so-called present life and the afterlife were nothing more than an obsession. And this person already had his lover long ago. So, I turned my soul into the purest creation primordial energy in the world, divided it into 4, and bestowed them to his wives respectively. At the end of my obsession, I've actually truly understood. I finally know what the so-called love feels like. There was satisfaction in the Elven Empress' expression. When this last bit of my consciousness dissipates, I'll truly disappear from this world. The only thing that makes me feel gratified is that before my final disappearance, I've finally returned to my hometown. I've seen my long-lost kin again, and I have no more regrets in this life. The Elven Empress looked around her, full of longing. At this point, even Chu Yang, Shui Han and the others felt a sense of sorrow. This elven empress, who looked weak and lovely, had never done any evil deeds in her life. She had devoted her entire life to the elves, whether it was the elves in the heavens or the elves in the heavens. As an empress, her greatest wish was to be able to marry and experience the taste of love like an ordinary woman. However, such an extremely ordinary wish was filled with twists and turns. From the beginning to the end, she still hadn't achieved it. Even if she said that she had tasted it now, it was only because she felt the same way and enjoyed the feelings of Zhiqiang and the others. Now this wisp of her soul was about to dissipate and enter the path of eternal silence. It was a pity that no matter how emotional they were, they couldn't help at all. Because the elven empress in front of them was only a wisp of her consciousness, the last bit of her life force. The elven empress calmly looked at Chu Yang. Her eyes were filled with boundless tenderness. She even smiled and said, "I really envy the four of them. So, I gave them my truest and purest wishes. You can rest assured that I haven't affected their minds from the beginning to the end. They are them, and I am me. I am only me." This sentence was a little vague and even a little incoherent. However, Chu Yang understood, really understood. "I understand. Thank you very much." The elven empress smiled a little warmly and a little sadly. "You're welcome. Actually, I should be the one thanking them. After following them, I finally understood what kind of feelings it is for a woman to fall in love with a man. It turns out that this is the most wonderful feeling in the world." She gazed at Chu Yang and said, "And a man like you who cares and cares for them in every possible way is even more intoxicating and mesmerizing. Chu Yang, I actually fell in love with you too. If there's a next life, I'll marry you, okay?" Everyone was silent for a while. This included Mo Qingwu, Zhiqiang and the other two girls. Logically speaking, a woman had suddenly appeared here and wanted to marry Chu Yang. Logically speaking, they should be extremely jealous and glaring angrily at that woman. But now, at this moment, they only felt a heartfelt sadness. How pitiful was this woman! Who could reject such an excessive request? At this moment, Chu Yang was also a little sad, but also a little amused. Now, he had basically reached the realm of immortality. If he could go one step further, he would even reach the realm of immortality. If that was the case, how could he have a next life? Seeing that Chu Yang didn't give an answer for a long time, the elven empress' eyes gradually dimmed. She said dejectedly, "Forget it." The 5 elven gods stared at Chu Yang with murderous eyes. Each of them looked as if they wanted to beat this guy into powder. Her Majesty is about to disappear from this world. What can you do by coaxing her? It's just a sentence. Will you die? Or will you lose something? Do you have to be so hypocritical? Little bastard, little bastard. Anyway, no matter what you say, it's impossible. We don't need you to take responsibility. Are you not even willing to say a sentence? Chu Yang suddenly smiled and said, "Her Majesty is a beauty that can topple nations. She's devastatingly beautiful and gentle. I also like her very much." The elven empress' eyes lit up. Full of hope, she asked, "Then, if there's a next life, how about I marry you?" This woman didn't even try to hide her feelings for him. She was so pure yet so eager. Chu Yang nodded gently and said with a smile, "Okay." The elven empress suddenly smiled. Her eyes were full of tears. Looking at Chu Yang reluctantly, she said, "I know you're coaxing me, but I'm still very happy. I love you, Chu Yang. Do you know, when you didn't know my name, you once said, 'You'll dance with me, Qiong Xiao, and I'll conquer the world with you.' I believe that at that time, you didn't know that Qiong Xiao was my name." Chapter 2644. At this moment, the elven empress' tone was actually a little mischievous. "And you dance with me, Qiong Xiao, and I'll accompany you to conquer the world. That's also my lifelong wish." Although it didn't really come true, there was still a man who said this, and that man is the man I love. Chu Yang's heart shook. He recalled that he had said these words to his brothers more than once in the past. However, She had never thought that this sentence would be such a beautiful dream for a woman. This was almost every woman's dream. You dance with me, Cheong Xiao. I'll accompany you to conquer the world. This was also a kind of inseparability, and it was a true inseparability at the peak. Then, the elven empress' body swayed slowly. She said, I'm going to disappear. You have the elven emperor's seal with you. From now on, you're the elven empress of the elven race. Chu Yang, my husband, Grandpa Arrow God. I'm sorry, goodbye. My wish has come true, I'm very satisfied. The elven empress figure gradually became illusory and dispersed like smoke, but her eyes were fixed on Chu Yang's face. They were dreamy and full of affection. I want to kiss you. She suddenly tried her best to float closer to Chu Yang, wanting to kiss him. Chu Yang didn't dodge. Any extra movement at this moment was equivalent to blaspheming the elven empress' true feelings. Chu Yang couldn't dodge, and he couldn't bear to. However, the last bit of movement was all in vain. Her red lips, which had already dispersed into smoke, had completely dispersed the moment they touched Chu Yang's face. In the end, Chu Yang didn't feel this kiss. The elven empress Wu Qiongxiao didn't complete this kiss after all. And it dissipated, it seemed. All that was left was a sigh. This elven empress, who had been pure and flawless all her life, wanted to kiss the face of the man she loved at the last moment of her life. Such a small wish. She didn't even manage to do it. The elven empress completely dissipated, and the 5 elven gods burst into tears, especially the arrow god, who was even more devastated. At this moment, Chu Yang's heart was also a little sour. He didn't love the elven empress, but he pitied her a little. He couldn't let her pass away without regrets. To Chu Yang, this was also a pity. Following the disappearance of the elven empress, the radiance emitted from the bodies of Mo Qing Wu and the other 3 also gradually disappeared into their bodies. The 4 women gathered around Chu Yang. Even Zi Xiqing, who was the most powerful, was no exception at this moment. After witnessing the passing of this peerless beauty, and hearing her inner voice, he felt as if he had been struck by lightning. It made the 4 women feel that in this world, there was nothing more important than having their loved ones by their side. There was also, at this moment, the way the 5 elven gods looked at the 4 of them truly frightened them. Their gazes were fanatical and sorrowful. Even though the 4 women were all experts. But under such a peculiar gaze, she felt uncomfortable all over. She felt the safest by Chu Yang's side. As the person they loved, and also the person who loved them, if they didn't use such a safe haven now, when would they? Chu Yang smiled bitterly and said in a low voice, Just now, you did the right thing. And Mo Qing Wu and the other 3 said in unison. Then, they looked at each other embarrassedly. Then Tai Batian said on behalf, She's really too pitiful. I can't help but feel pity for her. So cute and beautiful. Such a gentle beauty, yet she has to be alone for the rest of her life, waiting for the rest of her life. After hearing about her experience, our hearts also ached. She only has this one wish in her life. If you still can't fulfill it, that's too cruel. Chu Yang sighed. At this moment, how could he not have such thoughts in his heart? Otherwise, he wouldn't have stood still and let the elven empress do whatever she wanted. Yes, this elven empress Wu Qiongxiu was really too pitiful. Chu Yang couldn't even understand why the heavens would choose to torture such a peerless beauty. The only wish in her life, which could be said to be an extremely humble wish, was still not fulfilled even when she died and her will dissipated. How cruel the heavens were! A pure and clean life. This was truly the path of purity and purity in this life. Chu Yang and the others sighed in their hearts. The 5 elven gods walked toward them and looked at Chu Yang. Everyone's eyes and expressions were full of endless support and fanaticism. That was a feeling that went deep into their bones. Then, the 5 of them knelt down and said in unison, Greetings, Your Majesty! Chu Yang was shocked when he heard that. Chu Yang didn't have time to think and hurriedly dodged. Since when did I become the elven empress? What's with this? I'm a purebred human, okay? I was already very depressed when I was slandered as a mixed breed. Now it's even worse. I'm a complete mutant, now. Do you think I don't know that the elven empress must be a purebred elf? How can you tell that I'm a purebred elf? This is too ridiculous. Seeing the confusion on his face, the god of archery explained with a smile. Your Majesty, you have the elven emperor's seal, the highest imperial seal of the elven race. Since the elven emperor's seal has recognized you as its master, then you are our elven empress. He looked at the stunned and helpless Chu Yang with a doting look on his face. It was a kind of fondness that he couldn't get enough of. He said, Also, you are someone personally recognized by Her Majesty, and you are our empress husband. Then, if you are not the elven empress, who else is? His words were so shocking that Chu Yang was completely dizzy. This works too. What's this? How did I become the elven empress husband? Could he be any more ridiculous? Could he be any more ridiculous? Your Excellency, God of Archery, let's be frank. Everyone knows that what happened just now was just a temporary expedient. Chu Yang's mouth was dry. Senior God of Archery, what you said is too much. This is not something that can be joked about. It's too childish. Joke? Childish? We don't have the slightest intention of joking with you. How can such an important decision be childish? The god of archery said seriously. Chu Yang, you have only been in the imperial court for a short period of time. This is indeed a tradition of the elven race, and it has been so since ancient times. Shui Leihan added. The situation now is as such. You can't reject it. The elven emperor's seal is with you, so you are the successor elven empress. It is your responsibility to lead the elven race. With Chu Yang's intelligence, he could naturally tell that there was too obvious a hint in Shui Leihan's words. The elven race was a rather huge force. They were about to fight against the extraterrestrial demons. That was a great help. However, no matter how great the help was, Chu Yang was still unwilling to be this so-called elven empress. If the key lies in the inheritance of the elven emperor's seal, Chu Yang pondered and said, Why don't you find another elf with excellent aptitude? I will try to find a way to transfer the elven emperor's seal back to the elf you have chosen, and let everything return to the right track. What do you think? Chu Yang's sudden words almost caused the god of archery and the demon empress Shui Leihan to break down. Try to transfer it? What do you think the elven emperor's seal is? You mustn't! The god of archery jumped up. The elven emperor's seal is definitely not allowed to be transferred. Once the owner of the emperor's seal gives up on it, the emperor's seal will dissipate immediately. Unless what? Chu Yang asked. As long as there was the word unless, it meant that there was hope. Chu Yang really didn't want to be that elven empress. Unless the owner of the elven emperor's seal dies or disappears. Only then will the elven emperor's seal dissipate. But it will definitely not be transferred to someone else. The god of archery was almost crying. This was the elven empress, the empress of a race. With the strength of the elven race, they could almost be above the heavens and the earth. How could there be someone so unwilling? Could it be that the world has really changed? Could it be that the elven race is doomed? Chu Yang was stunned. It couldn't be transferred? Unless it died? Even if it died, it would only dissipate? For a moment, Chu Yang was really at a loss. He murmured, But I am so busy every day. Where do I have the time to be your elven empress? Is there really no other way? Chu Yang was very depressed. The 5 elven gods were also elders who had lived for countless years. Even if they weren't the smartest people, they were still very wise. They immediately understood Chu Yang's concerns and couldn't help but laugh. If you become the elven empress, you won't need to stay in the elven race. You don't have to stay in the elven territory for a long time. You can still do whatever you want. We won't interfere with your freedom. Chu Yang heaved a sigh of relief. I see. As long as you don't disturb my normal life, there is room for discussion. The 5 elven gods laughed dryly. What kind of person is this? Is it so unfair for you to be our elven empress? The god of strength, who had the most straightforward personality, rubbed his hands and said hesitantly, I heard that your majesty has the spring of life? But how much exactly do you have? Do you have any leftovers? Hearing this, Chu Yang's expression also became strange. A surplus? Could it be that the elven race in the heavenly imperial court also doesn't have the spring of life? The 5 elven gods had awkward looks on their faces. After a while, the archer god laughed bitterly and said, Your Majesty, yes, our clan's spring of life has been treasuring and carefully protecting it all these years. However, without the support of the elven emperor's seal, our clan's spring of life has been decreasing year by year. It can be said that our situation has been deteriorating over the years. Now we're almost at the bottom. The 5 elven gods sighed at the same time. It's precisely because of such a problem with the spring of life that the elven race walked out of the elven forest and prepared to join the heavenly devil battlefield. Anyway, without the spring of life, the elven race is destined to gradually decline and wither. Why don't we take this opportunity to fight the heavenly devil battlefield to the death? At least, we can die with more vigor. Chapter 2646. But I didn't expect that there would be a glimmer of hope this time. First, Her Majesty returned, and now, His Majesty ascended the throne, and the Fairy Emperor's seal gathered once again. The Strength God said with some relief. It seems that the fairy race is magnanimous this time. Good people have good karma. Chu Yang rolled his eyes and looked at the Strength God. He thought, You guys have always been hiding in the mountains and forests. This time, you came out because you had no other choice. How dare you say that you are magnanimous? Sigh, as the Fairy Emperor, even I can't bear to listen to this, spring of life, I do have some. Chu Yang calculated in his heart. He definitely had a lot of spring of life on hand. But there was no such thing as too much. Who knew how much the fairy race needed, and how much he would have to give? 30%, 50%, 70%, or all of it. These were all unknown. But in the end, Chu Yang still decided that it would be worth it even if he had to give up all of the spring of life to save the elf race and to provide such a powerful assistance in the battle against the extraterrestrial demons. Moreover, he was the Fairy Emperor. He couldn't just stand in the toilet and not do anything. On the side, and Mo Tianji frowned slightly. He wanted to say something, but in the end, he didn't. I believe that my spring of life can solve the fairy race's urgent needs, Chu Yang said lightly. Since I am the Fairy Emperor, I naturally have to do something for the fairy race. Leave the fairy race's lack of spring of life to me. When Chu Yang said this, the 5 fairy gods were overjoyed. They knew that Chu Yang, the Fairy Emperor, was suddenly forced to do something beyond his ability. It was too sudden, and it was impossible for someone who wasn't in fairy to suddenly become the Fairy Emperor to hold all the real power. If Chu Yang really acted like a tyrant now, the 5 fairy gods might not listen to him, ordering them to do this and that, and the fairy race might even riot. Even if they tried their best, it would be like they were obeying on the surface but opposing on the inside. The current situation was, the Fairy Emperor's seal had coincidentally landed on Chu Yang, which was equivalent to binding Chu Yang. Since Chu Yang was willing to contribute to the spring of life, even if the fairy race's declining situation couldn't be completely resolved, there was at least room for improvement. It could be said to be a pretty good result. On this basis, the fairy race would do something for Chu Yang. So, it was only natural for them to accept Chu Yang's orders. But Minister Chu obviously hadn't finished speaking. The 5 elven gods immediately understood. He knew that the real show was about to begin. The elf emperor that he had just acknowledged was going to negotiate with them. However, everyone was already mentally prepared and did not feel that it was sudden. Your Majesty, please speak, the 5 said in unison. I also don't have any conditions, just one. Chu Yang said seriously. The experts of the elf clan must accompany me to exterminate the extraterrestrial demons. The expert I'm talking about. It means that the elves must send out all their elites and must not be negligent. Previously, Chu Yang had also thought that the elves had come out in large numbers to fight against the extraterrestrial demons because there was no hope left. But if he gave them hope, would they shrink back? However, this concern only flashed through his mind. With the pride of the elves, such a thing would happen. It was absolutely impossible. Just this? The 5 elven gods were a little surprised by Chu Yang's condition. This is enough. Chu Yang nodded seriously. That's easy. Can this still be used as a condition? The 5 elven gods heaved a sigh of relief and smiled with relief. The elves came out this time to kill the extraterrestrial demons. Even if your majesty didn't mention it, we would still have to fight. We can't pull out the bridge after crossing the river. Haha. At the side, Motianji relaxed his brows and heaved a sigh of relief. This was also what he was worried about just now. It was not that he was trying to be petty, but this battle was really too crucial. A huge force like the elf clan was also very important. They could not afford any mishaps. Therefore, Motianji was also worried about personal gains and losses. Yes, so I didn't negotiate with you at all. Xu Yang narrowed his eyes and smiled. Hearing that this was not a condition, with Minister Chu's shrewdness, he naturally changed the topic immediately. The shamelessness of a certain king of hell. Everyone was already used to this. It was just that the 5 elven gods had never dealt with someone before, so naturally, they were at a disadvantage. Therefore, the 5 elven gods were depressed again. We were just saying it to express our clan's sense of right and wrong. You really went along with it. The saint had been defeated, and the situation was set. Everyone knew that from now on, the imperial court was bound to usher in unprecedented chaos. The Saint Emperor Palace's strength, which belonged to the saint, would definitely bring about huge losses to the imperial court. However, after this wave of chaos, great chaos would inevitably be followed by great governance. It could be expected that there would truly be long-term peace and stability. Of course, this was on the premise that the extraterrestrial demons were completely eliminated. How's the latest news? Shui Leihan asked when he heard the jingling sounds on Motianji's body. Ever since he revealed his identity as the head of the Heavenly Secrets Intelligence Department, Motianji couldn't wait to fully release this sound. This was because with the Heavenly Secrets hands on him, there would be news coming every time. Every piece of news couldn't be heard by others, but all the vibrations had to be borne by him alone. It wasn't that big of a commotion, but if it was too frequent, it could really annoy him to death. Even though it wasn't a big commotion, he could feel his heart being shaken to the point of being unwell at all times. Once he let it go, he naturally felt a lot better. It was just that during the time when Chu Yang was talking to the 5 elven gods, the jingling sounds had rung no less than hundreds of times. These hundreds of times meant that there were hundreds of the latest news coming from all over the world. Shui Leihan had always been very surprised by this. How could this thing be carried around to receive news? Because he, the Demon Empress, and even the Saint didn't have such a thing. The latest news. Motianji read as he spoke. Unexpectedly, he himself couldn't help but chuckle first. The world is really in chaos. Motianji smiled and said, The first thing is that after the great emperor of the extreme heaven Wushang received the news we released, he immediately announced to the world that Chu Yang is the minister of the Jade Heavens, a position above the heavenly emperor. Anyone in the extreme heaven who disagrees will be killed without mercy. This is a beautiful move, awesome! Shui Leihan and the Demon Empress clapped and praised at the same time. As the spiritual pillar of the imperial court for a long time, the Saint Emperor had suddenly fallen. Then, there would definitely be turbulence in the imperial court. Many people who were used to heroes would find it hard to accept at the moment. And at this time, a new spiritual leader had to be pushed out immediately and cleanly to be the new spiritual pillar of the imperial court. And Chu Yang was the best candidate to replace the Saint Emperor now. Although Dong Wushang was used to being magnanimous, this move was exceptionally well done. It was very timely and could be said to be extremely beautiful. And Mo Tianji smiled bitterly in his heart. When Shui Lei Han and Yao Xian said that it was beautiful, he knew what they were thinking. They would definitely think that Dong Wushang was far-sighted and prepared for a rainy day. But, with Mo Tianji's understanding of Dong Wushang, this guy definitely wouldn't think so far ahead. Most likely, this fellow was doing this purely to push his boss up to the top. As for the far-reaching impact and profound meaning, Dong Wushang probably didn't have any of that in his mind. Shui Lei Han and Yao Xian really praised the wrong person for praising Dong Wushang. Beautiful? The 5 elven gods only noticed the name, Qiongxiao Minister, and couldn't help but applaud and praise. It is indeed beautiful. Her Majesty's name is also in it. It is indeed a match made in heaven, a perfect match. Mo Tianji, Shui Lei Han and the others all looked at the 5 elven gods speechlessly. This Qiongxiao was not the same Qiongxiao. Although the names were exactly the same, the meaning was completely different. You elves really know how to flatter yourselves. But if they really wanted to interpret it this way, there was really no way. Actually, the real problem was, Dong Wushang was now in the extreme heavens. How would he know who Wu Qiongxiao was? Xia Dan Qiong coughed and said, in fact, the name Minister Qiongxiao was given to Big Brother by the few of us at that time, because Big Brother used to be a minister in the lower 3 heavens. And his reputation as a minister shook the world. Cough, cough. At this point, he looked at Tai Butian a little awkwardly. Tai Butian smiled and said, yes, at that time, he was my minister. At the mention of he was my minister, Tai Butian's eyes lit up and a sense of happiness rose in her. Recalling the bits and pieces back then, Tai Butian suddenly felt that she had nothing more to ask for in this life. Back then, Chu Yang entered Iron Cloud alone with one sword and supported her side by side. Through all kinds of despair and dangers, they fought step by step. In the past, Butian Tai and Minister Chu were at the end of the road. They fought hard to rule over the world and rule over the world. Every time Tai Butian thought of this experience, she would feel that her happiness was already incomparable. Mo Qingwu, Zi Xieching and the others looked at Tai Butian with some envy, unconcealable envy. Because during that period of time, other than Wu Qianqian, the two of them couldn't compare at all. Mo Qingwu was a little better. She had at least interacted with Chu Yang before. Unfortunately, she was still a little girl at that time. She only acted cute and coquettish for a few days before returning for 3 days. As for Big Sister Z, it seemed that she only got to know a certain someone after a long time. That period of time belonged to Chu Yan and Tai Butian. At that time, everyone was still in their insignificant period. We once joked that if I became the Heavenly Emperor in the future, I would definitely respect the old minister. The joke that day was still vivid in my mind and still ringing in my ears. I didn't expect Dong Wushang to do it before everyone else. Xia Danqiong smiled and said, the majesty of the heavens and the aura of Qiongxiao is Minister Qiongxiao. Chapter 2647. GMO, Luo Kudi, and Mo Tianji smiled at the same time. How could they forget the past when they were brothers? That was a little secret that all the brothers kept from their boss. It was also the only thing that they kept from their boss in their lives, a common little secret between the brothers. At that time, everyone rushed up to the heavenly imperial court and gathered at Mo Yin Sky and Xia Danqiong's place for the first time to deal with Yuan Tianji. Xia Danqiong's heavenly emperor position was already in its embryonic form. It was also that time that everyone really had ambition and confidence. They made such a promise to each other. If I become the heavenly emperor, you will be the minister. The heavenly imperial court will be the emperor. No one dares to disobey his orders. No one can compete with him in the firmament. The brothers are of one heart, and the world shares the same name. This was the promise of all the brothers. It was also the greatest respect and gratitude that they had for Chu Yang from the depths of their hearts. But now, Dong Wushang was the first to reveal it. Xia Danqiong snorted in his heart. I'll definitely settle the score with Dong Wushang when I see him. This guy actually didn't negotiate with me, and just arbitrarily took the lead. Is he deliberately making things difficult for me? Back then I, Xie Danqiong, was the first to ascend to the Heavenly Emperor position. No, definitely not. I must settle the score. Mo Tianji was still full of joy and continued to announce the second piece of news. Heavenly Emperor Wu Shan announced that he will attack the 10,000 saints' true spirits in the entire extreme heaven. In the territory of the extreme heaven, everyone must take the responsibility of destroying the 10,000 saints' true spirits. The original forces of the Holy Emperor Palace will all be destroyed. Not a single one will be spared. The extreme heaven will take the lead in resisting Sage Monarch Master Yun. Furthermore, the Heavenly Emperor and Heavenly Empress will personally destroy the forces of the Holy Emperor Palace in the extreme heaven. The specific situation has not been reported yet, but there will be more detailed information soon, Mo Tianji said. However, Heavenly Emperor Wu Shang said that anyone who comes with the heads of the Holy Emperor Palace's experts will be rewarded with an official position as long as their identity is verified. They will be given special honors. Oh! Everyone heaved a sigh of relief. Then, they sucked in a breath again. Dong Wushang's move was really ruthless. The Holy Emperor Palace's elites were all wiped out. Right now, only a few halls still existed in the various realms. Although they were scattered all over the place, and there were many of them. However, there were almost no true peak experts left. Even if there were one or two of them, they would definitely not be a match for the Heavenly Emperor and Heavenly Empress. Furthermore, there was also a bounty for heads. To ordinary Tian Ke experts, they only needed to kill one person. Then, she would have a bright future. This would make most of the people in the extreme celestial empire go crazy. Dong Wushang's order was tantamount to completely wiping out the existence of Holy Emperor Palace in the Empyrean terminus. Mo Tianji and Chu Jiang exchanged a look. This final bounty order was definitely not something that a blockhead like Dong Wushang could come up with. If it wasn't Molayer's handiwork, then it must have been the handiwork of the military officials. Then it was the green sky heavens. The evil cloud great Emperor Ao Xianyun also announced that Chu Jiang would be the minister of Jade Clouds. At the same time, they began to slaughter the 10,000 saints' true spirits, destroy all the forces of the Holy Emperor Palace, and hunt down the original members of the Holy Emperor Palace. Furthermore, he's offering a bounty for the head of a noble. This was the second piece of news. Ao Xianyun's side had also started to take action. This guy was even more ruthless. In order to wipe out Holy Emperor Palace, he might even offer a noble title. There was also the Ink Sky Heavens. The Jasper Flower Great Emperor Xie Danqiong also announced the same news. Chu Jiang will be the minister of Jade Clouds, and he will attack Master Yun in all aspects and wipe out Holy Emperor Palace's forces. There was also an order targeting the 10,000 saints' true spirit. It's also a bounty for heads. Now, the Ink Sky Heavens is already in chaos. Everyone is fighting to be the first. However, once this information was out, everyone looked at the Jasper Flower Great Emperor Xie Danqiong, who was still here in astonishment. Could it be that Xie Danqiong got retribution for impersonating someone and was impersonated by someone else? Xie Danqiong didn't mind everyone's astonished gazes at all. Instead, he said rather complacently, "Naturally, someone will do these things. It should be my wife. It's very normal for her to issue orders in my name. It's good to have a good wife. This kind of thing is something that some bachelors can't even be envious of." Everyone laughed. Ray Badong rubbed his fists and his hatred skyrocketed. Among the brothers, it seemed that only Ray Badong didn't do anything. This provocation and hatred, it was very strong. "Just you wait!" Ray Badong threatened fiercely. The Eastern Emperor Demon Empress and the 5 elven gods were indescribably shocked at this moment. They all realized one thing. Chu Yang's brothers who weren't here actually didn't value the position of Celestial Emperor that they had obtained through hard work. It wasn't just these few people. These people in front of them also had their own considerable forces, but when had they ever valued them? Since ancient times, Whether it was the celestial palace or the human world's emperors, there was a saying that women can't interfere in politics. However, this Jasper Flower Great Emperor, as a celestial emperor, actually casually handed the celestial emperor's jade seal, which represented supreme power, to his wife to play with. Moreover, she could issue any orders in his place. This was simply an inconceivable thing. Then, the other little ones actually didn't feel the slightest bit surprised. Instead, they all had an expression as if it was a matter of course. They knew that this group of people were all the same. Even supreme power wasn't as important as brotherly love, husband and wife love. This was their heart, their persistence. Such persistence gave the Eastern Emperor Demon Empress a great shock. The two looked at each other, and saw the envy and approval in each other's eyes. They were the ones who had the most flavor in their lives, and also the ones who had the most ambition. The big Western Skies sighed. Amo Tianji continued to read. Gu Du-Xing led the reassembled Heavenly Armament Pavilion's military forces and launched a new round of fierce fighting with Crazed Sword Heavenly Emperor. Gu Du-Xing himself was admittedly invincible, but due to the great disparity in military strength between the two sides, the battle situation fell into a deadlock. However, after the news that Master Cloud was the master of myriad holy true spirits spread out, the army of the big Western Skies Crazed Sword Heavenly Emperor's side collapsed in an extremely short time. The army was defeated like a landslide. Crazed Sword Heavenly Emperor himself was disheartened. He sealed his sword and retired, announcing his withdrawal from the struggle for hegemony over the world. Everyone was shocked. But thinking about it, this was actually to be expected. The sage was myriad holy true devil, and also fully supported Crazed Sword Heavenly Emperor. Now, Crazed Sword Heavenly Emperor Wu Yakuang was like yellow mud that had fallen into his pants. Even if it wasn't shit, it was shit. Apart from quietly withdrawing, there was no other way. If he still stubbornly resisted, he was afraid that he would attract the joint encirclement of the various great heavenly emperors, turning into scattered ashes. Extermination was right before his eyes. Crazed Sword Heavenly Emperor Wu Yakuang admitted defeat on the spot. He honored Gu Du-Xing as the solitary Heavenly Emperor and handed over all his authority. Then, he led a team of trusted experts and rushed to Purple Cloud Heavens to fight the Heavenly Demon, Sai. Shui Leihan and the Demon Empress sighed at the same time. The big Western Skies Crazed Sword Heavenly Emperor Wu Yakuang had never been considered outstanding among the Heavenly Emperors. Moreover, he had a reckless personality, and was easily impulsive. He had always been neutral in establishing his faction, but this time, he had been firmly conned by the sage. Now that things had come to this, he naturally didn't have any face to occupy the position of Heavenly Emperor. But for Wu Yakuang to be able to make this kind of choice at the last moment, he can still be considered a man. Everyone sighed silently. Amo Tianji smiled coldly. He was conned so miserably by the sage. Even if he went to fight the heavenly demon, others may not really believe him. Moreover, this is the only way he can barely express his true intentions. This has nothing to do with whether he is a man or not. Perhaps he really is a hot-blooded man, but right now, no one will pay attention to this. Everyone thought about it, and couldn't help but break out in cold sweat. Just as Mo Tianji said, Wu Yakuang's current position was really awkward to the extreme. No matter what he did, suspicion hung on his buttocks. The sage's conning directly made this generation's heavenly emperor, aside from the Purple Cloud Heaven's battlefield, have no place to stay. The solitary heavenly emperor Gu Du-Xing, after the war ended, immediately released the news. He honored Chujiang as the minister of Jade Cloud. The entire big western sky, encircle and annihilate the 10,000 saints' true spirit. Encircle and annihilate the forces of the Holy Emperor Palace. At the same time, several heavenly emperors issued orders at the same time. The whole world is preparing for war. All armies are to assemble and train. All departments are to be fully prepared. At any time, the army is to head north and exterminate the heavenly demon. This is the demon slaughtering order. When Mo Tianji read this, everyone's blood was already boiling. It was hard to restrain themselves. The demon slaughtering order had finally blossomed in the heavenly imperial court. Exterminating the heavenly demon, that was the common wish of many generations in the heavenly imperial court. How many people had been looking forward to this day for many years? The hot blood in their hearts had never been extinguished. Now, had it finally reached the present stage? However, after Mo Tianji received another piece of new information, he seemed to be somewhat hesitant. He wanted to say something but stopped. What else is there? Is it bad news? The Demon Empress asked. The sage had suffered a great defeat this time. Naturally, he wouldn't not make a move to counterattack. He had always operated in the heavenly imperial court for more than 1,000,000 years. The forces under his command were certainly not few. Making a counterattack at the first opportunity was also reasonable. Cough, cough. I really don't know if this is good news or bad news, ha ha. Mo Tianji coughed twice. He smiled bitterly and continued to read. The Demon Emperor's Sky Demon Imperial Palace officially announced that they honored Chu Yang as the Minister of Jade Cloud. Furthermore, the entire Demon Emperor's heaven will encircle and annihilate the 10,000 saints' true spirit and annihilate the remnants of the Saint Emperor's palace. The Demon Empress was stunned for a moment. Then, she came to a realization and said angrily, "This little bastard. He honored Chu Yang as the Minister of Jade Cloud, but where did he put his mother? I haven't even returned and he's already planning to usurp the throne and change the dynasty? What the hell is he doing?" Everyone tried hard to hold back their laughter. They coughed repeatedly. They were laughing so hard that their stomachs hurt. They all thought that it was no wonder Mo Tianji's behavior was so melodramatic. They didn't know how to explain this news. It was hard to say. Why did Yao Ningning join in the fun? They were just waiting for the Demon Empress to return. It would only take a moment. This guy couldn't even wait for this moment, and joined in the fun. Chapter 2649. Shui Leihan said with a smile. That's not a problem. On the contrary, I think this is a good decision. Anyway, your position will be given to him sooner or later. Since he has made such a decision, other than taking into account his brotherhood, it also means that he is willing to shoulder this burden. You should really feel happy about it. This is really not something to be embarrassed about. Not only your Demon Emperor Heaven, but even my Eastern Royal Heaven will also announce that we will honor Chu Yang as the Minister of Fine Clouds. We will also begin to annihilate the forces of the Holy Emperor Palace and the 10,000 Saints' Holy Spirits. Anyway, I just don't feel good. When I go back this time, I'll beat that little bastard until he cries for his parents. The Demon Empress said hatefully. Shui Leihan laughed out loud. Then, he sighed emotionally. Looking at Chu Yang and the rest, he sighed. Originally, he thought that if Chu Yang and the rest could catch up to him in 10,000 years, it would already be very good and commendable. As for catching up to him in a few thousand years or a few hundred years, although that was an extravagant hope, it was not absolutely impossible. But now, not 10,000 years, 1,000 years, 100 years, but a few years. Shui Leihan suddenly felt that he was really a little old. The new generation surpasses the old. Shui Leihan sighed and looked at the Demon Empress. The Demon Empress said angrily, "Why are you looking at me? Are you mocking me for being old?" Suddenly, she thought of something and her face turned red. Shui Leihan was obviously sighing and self-deprecating. There was also the meaning of "I'm about to be replaced and want to live in seclusion." As for looking at her, it was probably because he wanted her and him too. Humph! The Demon Empress snorted with a red face. She turned her head away. Mo Tianji exclaimed in surprise. During this period, Mo Tianji had been receiving information. A large amount of information came in one after another. Now that he suddenly spoke and his tone was full of questions, everyone couldn't help but be curious. What happened? Hurry up and tell us, don't beat around the bush. Everyone asked. Cloud Master's son, Yun Tian, was ambushed near the extreme heaven together with a group of guards. They died at the same time. The attacker was the son of the heavenly emperor of the green cloud heaven, stranger. Everyone was taken aback when they heard this. This news was extremely unexpected. Chu Yang recalled the time when he had just arrived in the eastern royal heavens. This was the first time he saw Yun Tian, and he was in high spirits. He could not help but sigh. That he was definitely a talent. But before he could do anything, he was killed just like that. Xue Leihan's expression was exceptionally complicated. Since this Yun Tian was able to survive until now, he was most likely Xue Xian's son. In other words, he was his nephew. He died just like that. He sighed softly. For a moment, he didn't know what he was feeling. The everlasting celestial emperor of the grand overarching heaven, Ziwuji, has issued an order to hunt down the remnants of the holy emperor palace, and kill the myriad holy true spirit. This order of his was unanimously criticized by many heavenly emperors. Mo Tianji seemed to have received the latest news. Reading it, he could not help but laugh. What? Blame? Why? Everyone was puzzled. Yes, it's really an accusation, Mo Tianji said. Mo Yun Tian. The big western sky, extreme heaven, clear firmament heaven, and demon emperor heaven jointly questioned the everlasting celestial emperor. Why didn't you honor Chu Yang as the jade firmament throne? Ha ha! Everyone laughed out loud. This kind of accusation was really rude and unreasonable to the extreme. Chu Yang was your boss, not someone else's boss. Why did you honor him as the jade firmament throne, and why should others honor him as the jade firmament throne? There was probably no one who could be more unreasonable than him. Cough cough. Mo Tianji seemed to be a little embarrassed by his brother's rudeness. He said, "The heavenly emperors made a statement. If there is a day when you don't honor Chu Yang as the jade firmament throne, there will be so and so. Currently, the Daluo heaven is holding an emergency meeting, discussing something, cough cough cough. Holding an emergency meeting." It could be seen how far they had forced the other party. The Eastern Royal Sky released the news, to hunt down the remnants of the Holy Emperor Palace and the 10,000 Saints' true spirit. However, they did not announce the news of the Jade Firmament Throne. Thus, they were similarly criticized, questioned. Mo Tianji looked at Xue Leihan from the corner of his eyes. Xue Leihan, who was laughing out loud and gloating over the everlasting celestial emperor's misfortune, was stunned. Then, he flew into a rage. I say, isn't this too unreasonable? Don't you have any sense of justice? He was still gloating just now, and in the blink of an eye, it was his turn. Mo Tianji and Xie Danqiong smiled calmly. Your Majesty, we just feel that it's best to unify the steps for this kind of thing. Didn't you also praise this matter just now? Why are you saying this now? Xue Leihan was speechless. He roared. Justice is in the hearts of the people. You are threatening, coercing, oppressing. This is simply unreasonable. Unreasonable to the extreme. Xie Danqiong laughed and said, Is utility really in the hearts of the people? I think it's more about power. Actually, isn't all of this created by you? You already have such great achievements, why are you still angry? Isn't this too fake? Look at your mouth, it's all the way to the back of your ears, and you're still pretending to object. Xue Leihan was stunned. He almost turned his anger into laughter. He coughed forcefully and held it in. Just as Xie Danqiong said, Dongwang Xue Leihan was the real instigator of everything that happened today. Xue Leihan coughed a few times before he put on an unwilling expression and said, I'm not angry. I also feel that it's best to unify the steps. But before I go back, you guys have already started to bully people. Especially you, Xie Danqiong, you're the most unscrupulous. I was wrong about you. Pretty boy, you really don't have good intentions. Otherwise, they would all call you Xie Rabbit. I was still wondering why it was such a name. Hearing this, everyone burst into laughter. Xie Danqiong was innocently implicated. His face was full of black lines. What does this have to do with my nickname? That's too unreasonable, isn't it? The situation had already developed to the current stage. Everyone on this side also started to take action on this side. They didn't need to discuss anything at all. They immediately went their separate ways. The Demon Empress had to return to the Demon Palace immediately to preside over the situation and stabilize the hearts of the demons. With Yao Ningning's current aura, she might not be able to control the situation. Therefore, the Demon Empress still needed to appear personally. Dong Huang also had to return to the Eastern Royal Heavens immediately to make arrangements. Most importantly, he also had to officially release a supplementary statement of honoring Chu Yang as the Minister of Jade Clouds, to set an example for the others after D. And the reason had to be sufficient, reasonable, and not appear to be forced. Otherwise, the Heavenly Armament Pavilion would have the final say in the Imperial Court. Shuo Leihan himself was rather dissatisfied with this arrangement. The first reason was that he was actually used by himself. Although he was willing, he still felt a little uncomfortable. His feelings were really complicated. The second reason was also very intolerable. He had just established a relationship with Xian and was looking forward to a deeper level of communication. Moreover, the chances were very high. But at such a good time, you want me to return to the Eastern Royal Heavens and separate us lovers? Don't you have any sense of justice? This was really intolerable. Even if the uncle could tolerate it, the aunt couldn't. No, the uncle couldn't tolerate it. His Majesty Dongwang let out a long sigh. He felt that the separation of life was impermanent and unpredictable. He was filled with the sorrow of separation. The most difficult thing in the world is lovesickness. Separation makes lovesickness worse. Lovesickness is the bitterness of lovesickness. His Majesty Dongwang wanted to write a poem, but after racking his brains, he could only recite a few sentences. Because his buttocks had already been ruthlessly kicked by the blushing Demon Empress. Then, the Demon Empress also swayed away, leaving behind a vicious sentence. Disrespectful. I made you lovesickness. Everyone looked at His Majesty Dongwang, who was kicked flat on the ground. They wanted to laugh but didn't dare to. Yes, you made me lovesickness. Dongwang patted his buttocks and sat up. He didn't seem to mind at all and looked thoughtful. Pfft. Everyone finally burst out laughing. However, Dongwang Heaven still had to return to the Eastern Royal Heaven. Now, the matter of honoring Chu Yang as the Minister of Jade Clouds was very important. Those intimate moments in front of flowers and under the moonlight could wait until they had the time. Besides the Demon Empress Donghuang, who rushed back to her own heaven and earth, Xie Danqiong also rushed back to Ink Cloud Heaven. GMO, Luo Kadi and Rui Budong also set off at the same time to return to their own heaven and earth. They couldn't let Gu Duxing, Dong Wushang and the others enjoy the limelight. How could they miss out on such a good thing like honoring Chu Yang as the Minister of Jade Clouds? They only gathered for a short period of time before everyone scattered and went their separate ways. The whole world, including Qibei Heaven, the South Pole Heaven and the Buddha Heaven, started to make similar announcements. Hunt down Master Yun, destroy the forces of the Saint Emperor Palace, encircle and annihilate the 10,000 saints' true spirits. At this point, the entire Heaven Imperial Court no longer had a place for the Saint Emperor Master Yun. And all of this completely erupted in an instant after the Great Battle. The power of the Tianji Intelligence Department established by Mo Tianji was uniform and terrifying. When Mo Tianji and Chu Le's other two lovers left together, Mo Tianji said, "This time, everyone is basically fighting for themselves. And everyone can't take care of each other. So, I've already spread the news." Chu Yang asked. "What news?" "The news is, everyone has to occupy a heaven and earth. If they succeed, it'll be considered a success, and they'll have the basic foundation. And in the future battle of the Purple Cloud Heaven, it'll depend on whose contribution is greater." Mo Tianji smiled mysteriously. "This contribution isn't just for show. There are other rewards and punishments. But, Big Brother, you and I can be an exception. We won't participate in this competition." Chu Yang said in surprise. "Why can you be an exception?" Chapter 2650. Chu Yang was a little puzzled. He was pushed to the throne by his brothers. Of course, he could be excluded. But why was Mo Tianji excluded? Wasn't he afraid of being attacked by everyone? Ha. Because I already have my own special force. It's the kind that will never weaken. Mo Tianji smiled faintly and was full of confidence. Intelligence Kingdom. In this realm, I will be invincible and unrivaled. So, I won't fight with everyone for that. Heavenly Emperor Tianji is already worthy of his name. Mo Tianji smiled and said, Don't you think so, big brother? Chu Yang heard this and laughed. His surprise disappeared. That was true. Mo Tianji's intelligence kingdom was already fully formed. He only needed a command to make the entire Heaven Imperial Court tremble. Indeed, he didn't need to occupy any specific territory. In addition, Mo Tianji's words also faintly revealed the direction that Chu Yang and the others had been working towards. We will never stop at the Heaven Imperial Court. In the past, it was the Heaven Imperial Court. In the future, it will be a wider and more limitless realm. We will definitely go to a wider space in the future. If we have a world, we will naturally have our own responsibilities and restraints. The others could leave at any time. Only Mo Tianji couldn't. Mo Tianji was the kind of person who would do his best when he did something. This was actually a kind of obsessive-compulsive disorder. In order to prevent his obsessive-compulsive disorder from acting up, Mo Tianji simply withdrew from this competition. It also prevented him from being unwilling to leave in the future. That awkward ending. The Tianji Intelligence Department that Mo Tianji had set up was actually an unusually large organization. In terms of influence, it was above any other force in Heaven Imperial Court. But this intelligence department had one advantage. That was, it could still operate without Mo Tianji. Mo Tianji was admittedly more efficient. But it wouldn't completely collapse without him. And Mo Tianji might have deliberately created such a situation. Because Mo Tianji had absolute confidence in himself, Chu Yang, and the brothers. His future and the brothers' future wouldn't stop at the Heaven Imperial Court. The next time we meet again, I'll tell you. It should be in purple cloud heavens, in front of the heavenly demon array. Mo Tianji smiled and said. Chu Yang pondered and said, Perhaps we can meet again for the final battle with Saint Monarch. Mo Tianji shook his head. That's unlikely. Even if it was a reunion, they wouldn't have gathered so many people either. The current sage no longer has that kind of weight. It's not worth it for all of us to gather. This sentence was really arrogant to the extreme. The only Saint Monarch of his generation had actually lost the qualifications to be besieged by Mo Tianji. However, none of the people who heard it objected. Because that was the truth. Everyone was already at the peak of the world. Mo Tianji smiled and looked at Mo Qingwu. Little sister, big brother won't be by your side to take care of you. You must take care of yourself. Mo Qingwu nodded obediently. Chu Yang said impatiently, What are you talking about? I can take care of my own wife. You don't need to worry about her. Hurry up and get lost. What's the point of talking about all this nonsense? Hey, don't forget to take good care of my sister. If my sister suffers any grievances, I'll skin you alive. Mo Tianji laughed and held Chu Le's hand. Then he left. Chu Le's happy and satisfied voice could be heard from afar. Big brother, you don't have to worry about me. Take care of yourself. Chu Le was extremely happy to be cared for by her big brother. Before she finished speaking, she had already disappeared. Chu Yang touched his nose and smiled bitterly in his heart. He thought to himself, Sister, I'll definitely be worried about you. However, I'm really not worried about you. Not only do you have someone like Mo Tianji to take care of you, I also have the cultivation of a peak saint and unparalleled poison skills. If I continue to worry about you, I'll be too free. Instead of worrying about you, I'd rather worry about those pitiful people who are attracted by your beautiful face and want to kiss you. In the blink of an eye, all the brothers had left without a trace. Only Chu Yang, Zi Xieching, Mo Qing Wu, Tai Badian, Wu Qianqian and their family of 5 were left. Yes, and the 5 elven gods. Looking at the hopeful eyes of the 5 elven gods, Chu Yang sighed and said, "Let's go to the Heavenly Armament Pavilion first and arrange things there. Then, we'll go to the Elven Forest immediately to solve the problem of the Spring of Life." Hearing this, the Arrow God and the others were all excited. They were excited from the bottom of their hearts. Finally, they relented. The elven race was saved. At this moment, the Arrow God was extremely glad. The heavens were still looking out for the elven race. Luckily. Back then, the saint tried his best to instigate him to go to the Heavenly Armament Pavilion to assassinate Xi Xieching. Luckily, he didn't have the heart to do it at the last moment. Otherwise, if his hand had trembled and that arrow had been shot. Thinking of this, the Arrow God broke out in cold sweat. At this moment, how could they still talk about the Elven Royal Seal and the Spring of Life? The entire elven race would probably have ceased to exist by now. That would be a joke to the point of being unbelievable. That arrow hadn't been shot was not only because the heavens were looking out for it, but also because the ancestors of the elven race were looking out for it. The group returned to the Heavenly Armament Pavilion. Chu Yang immediately started to assign tasks. Now, the most important thing was to train the soldiers. All the training matters were handed over to Meng Huiya and Li Guanyu. As for the training of the assassins, it was completely handed over to Wang Dao and the others. Chu Yang's requirements were a proper army, a dignified army, with a minimum of 5 million soldiers. No mediocre people were allowed to appear among them, and even more so, no incompetent people were allowed to make up the numbers. Any one of them had to be able to defeat an earth demon alone. As for the assassins, the number of assassins couldn't be less than 10,000. This number was Chu Yang's minimum requirement. Moreover, one point was repeatedly emphasized: no matter what level the experts were at, they had to obey orders as their first priority. Anyone who disobeyed orders and acted in their own way was not wanted, even if they were top experts at the peak of the saint stage. A rat's droppings could spoil a whole pot of porridge. An expert who disobeyed orders might become an unstable factor in the war. Meng Huiya strictly followed Chu Yang's instructions and firmly remembered them. He guaranteed that there wouldn't be any mistakes. In addition, Meng Huiya specially asked about the related forces of the Holy Emperor Palace. What should we do about the current Saint Monarch, the forces under the Holy Emperor Palace, and the related forces? Chu Yang pondered for a moment and said, "There's a great chance that the Saint Monarch has escaped from the Demon Emperor Heaven and gone to the place where his other doppelganger is. His body and soul have combined to recover his injuries and strength. All the departments of the Holy Emperor Palace that existed in the Demon Emperor Heaven have been uprooted by the people of the Demon Emperor Heaven. Besides, the bases over there have been destroyed. I believe that the remaining forces of the Holy Emperor Palace in the Demon Emperor Heaven are no longer a problem. You only need to strengthen your vigilance and train as usual. Don't deliberately do anything, understood?" Meng Huiya nodded. Chu Yang's arrangement could be said to be the most appropriate method. This was the Demon Emperor's heaven, not the Heavenly Armament Pavilion. After all, it was still the Demon Empress territory. Yao Ningning and the Demon Empress might not care about what the Heavenly Armament Pavilion did, and even strongly supported it. However, the majority of the demons in the Demon Emperor Heaven couldn't tolerate the Heavenly Armament Pavilion overpowering them. Make use of all the time and actively train the soldiers. Perhaps one day in the future, I won't return here to take charge. I'll directly use the Tianji Intelligence Department to issue an order. When that time comes, the army will immediately head north and charge towards the purple cloud heavens to reclaim our homeland and slaughter all the extraterrestrial demons," Chu Yang said. "Yes." Meng Huiya bowed and accepted the order. "Also, help me pass on a message to the Tang clan's third young master. Ask him to prepare all the provisions needed for this war. Whether it's food, drinks, clothes, weapons, herbs, etc., they must be fully prepared. There must be no mistakes," Chu Yang repeatedly instructed. "Also, other than ensuring that every soldier participating in the war has a storage space ring, the camp must also have a certain amount of reserves in case of emergency. This has been in preparation for a long time. There will definitely be no problem. Xi Xiecheng interrupted. That's good, Chu Zhang said. Other than that, we still have to do our best to publicize and incite. Now, it was almost time for the bloody battle to begin. Even if they had to resort to underhanded means, they would have to use them. Everything was for the long-term peace and stability of the Heaven Imperial Court. At this time, there's no need to worry about anything. Chu Yang's words were very vague, but Meng Huya and the rest all understood. Those who achieved great things did not bother about trifles. In the face of righteousness, even if they had to use some unpresentable methods, they had no choice but to use them. Everything had to be done with the priority of restoring the purple cloud heavens and destroying the extraterrestrial demons. Your Majesty, the Archer God said, do we need to coordinate the combat power of the elf race with that of the Heavenly Armament Pavilion? For example, add a few more archers and some assassins of the night to coordinate with each troop? Even the eyes of Meng Huya and the rest lit up when they heard this. The Archer God's suggestion was not only feasible, it was simply too feasible. If they could increase their combat power out of thin air, it would be a great thing for everyone. The archery skills of the elf race had always been the best in the Heaven Imperial Court. The assassins of the night were also incomparable to ordinary assassins. If they could have such combat power to join them, the strength of their troop would definitely increase by several folds. However, after pondering for a long time, Chu Yang finally rejected it. There's no need. The elf race will follow the organization of the elf race and form their own army. As long as they are well prepared for battle, they can go to the battlefield at a single command. Everything else is not a big problem. Chapter 2651. Xi Xiecheng was puzzled. She asked, why can't the two armies merge? If we work together, both sides will benefit. If we work together and complement each other's weaknesses, the strength of the battle team will definitely be boosted. Everyone has their own way of doing things, so there will be gaps. Take the elves as an example. Although every elf has considerable strength and is a natural archer, they are not good at close combat and group battles. Once they engage in close combat, the losses will definitely be great. Chu Yang smiled bitterly. How could I not know the principle of mutual benefits and complementing each other's shortcomings? But the elves are proud, conceited, clean, and competitive. These are naturally their strengths. But on the battlefield, these have become their weaknesses. At least, it's very difficult for the elves to follow orders and prohibitions, and enforce the law with their words. They have never worked together before. If they rashly merge the two armies, there will definitely be friction. The merging of millions of troops will take at least half a year. Furthermore, we can't do anything in this half a year. We can't even guarantee that we won't be at loggerheads after half a year. If there's enough time, I'll naturally try to break in and increase the strength of the battle team. However, a battle team that has not worked together will instead be a loss in terms of battle power, Chu Zhang said solemnly. The pride of the elves makes them even. An ordinary elf looks down on the peak experts of the human race, let alone the experts of the elves. No matter whether it is our human or elven warriors, they are all prepared to sacrifice their lives for the future of Tian Quebec. But when the two come together, one side will definitely have to sacrifice themselves. Why should we let our soldiers suppress themselves before they get into a bloody battle? Sacrifice themselves? Let's just let everyone win on the battlefield based on the number of enemies they kill. Let's not do this kind of unnecessary work together, Chu Zhang said solemnly. We really don't have much time left. If the soldiers survive, let them live with infinite glory. If any of them are unlucky, let them live with honor. If they die on the battlefield in the end, let them die with pride. Don't let them be suppressed again before they die. What you consider is battle power, but what I consider is the hearts of the people, Chu Zhang said. Ultimately, what determines battle power is still the hearts of the people. Chu Yang's words. Meng Huya, Li Guanyu and the rest were completely silent. Even the 5 elven gods fell silent after hearing this. Chu Yang's misgivings definitely existed, and no one could erase them. The 5 elven gods were all old people who had lived for a long time. So, how could they not understand this principle? If they were to pat their chests and guarantee that the elves would be able to do so, not to mention Chu Yang and the others, even they themselves wouldn't believe it. In fact, it wasn't just the 5 elven gods. They had to admit that. No one had expected it. What they had expected was only the powerful combat strength after the combination. They had not expected the situation at all. It was simply an illusion, unforgettable but unattainable. However, Chu Yang had already completely figured out the thoughts of these 2 people. Chu Yang's concerns. That was what was truly reasonable, far-sighted, and far-sighted. After making sure that there were no oversights, Chu Yang made a special trip to the mountains near Luohua City and scattered the mist from the Spring of Life. To make up for Zhiqiang's fire that sealed the mountains for 3,000 miles. They watched as Chu Yang waved his hand and sprinkled the water mist that was full of life energy. The barren mountains instantly regained their vitality and became lush and green. The eyes of the god of archery and the others almost popped out. They knew that Chu Yang had the Spring of Life, but they didn't expect him to have so much. And it was indeed the purest. And it vaguely surpassed. The god of archery couldn't wait and urged him, almost in tears. Chu Yang finally relented, together with Zhiqiang and the rest. With Zhiqiang and the others, they left the Demon Emperor's Heaven Weapon Pavilion and went to the Elven Camp. When they arrived at the Elven Camp, the 5 elven gods asked Chu Yang to show them the Elven Emperor's seal. Chu Yang was not stingy, and showed them the Elven Emperor's seal. The moment the Elven Emperor's seal appeared, millions of elves knelt on the ground and paid their respects to the Elven Emperor, Lord Chu Yang. After that, the elven army immediately set off and returned to the elven forest. It was better to go back and settle the matter of the Spring of Life as soon as possible so that the elves could participate in the battle without any worries and prepare for the final battle. It was just that on the way, the elven army's slogans made Chu Yang feel a little awkward. Because those slogans were too awkward. Guard the heavenly imperial court and kill the extraterrestrial demons. This is the sacred and inviolable responsibility and obligation of the elven race. How could Chu Yang not feel ashamed when he heard such slogans? And guard the entire human race. It is the glory of the elven race. Black lines appeared on Chu Yang's forehead. The god of archery also felt a little awkward about this. The elves had always considered themselves as the protectors of the human race and the saviors of the world. But now, the new elven emperor seemed to be very unhappy about this. It was no wonder. The elven emperor was a pure human being. It would be strange if he liked the elves' slogans that made them feel good about themselves. But Chu Yang wouldn't say anything. Before the great battle, this kind of feeling of self-esteem was better. The higher their combat power would be. Fortunately, Chu Yang didn't say anything. The 5 elven gods secretly heaved a sigh of relief. Let me ask, how many elves, with the combat power of heaven grade and above, can the elven race send? Chu Yang asked. Probably, no less than 8 million. The god of archery made a rough estimate and replied. The entire elven race only had 100 or 200 million people, but there were no less than 8 million people with the combat power of heaven grade and above. This ratio was quite shocking. The elven race's combat power is indeed worthy of its reputation. With the help of the elves, our chances of winning this battle have increased a lot. Chu Yang thought for a while and asked, Are there specialized commanders? Yes. The god of archery said. Our commanders may not necessarily have profound martial arts, but everyone is an expert in battle formations. We have a complete battle formation. You can rest assured about this. Once the battle starts, you will naturally see the unparalleled glory of the elven battle formation. Good, then we'll see the elven battle formation show its skills. Chu Yang heaved a sigh of relief. Looking at the elven army that was meandering for thousands of miles, the god of archery sighed. This time, we've returned to the elven forest for a short rest. It's also a good chance for the elves to witness the continuation of the spring of life and let them feel assured. We'll let them know that the elven race still has a future, and that the heavens won't destroy the elven race. When we come out of the elven forest again, it'll be the time for the final battle against the extraterrestrial demons. As long as the extraterrestrial demons are not destroyed, even if we're all wiped out, not a single elf will retreat. Chu Yang's heart was a little heavy. He said, "This battle may be exceptionally tragic and accompanied by many sacrifices. You must be mentally prepared. Your Majesty is benevolent. We've already prepared for the worst. The only thing that worries us is the future of the elven race." The god of archery answered seriously. Chu Yang nodded slightly. Along the way, Chu Yang could feel that his cultivation had once again advanced by leaps and bounds in a way that seemed to have no limits. An unprecedented and indescribable power came from all directions in the world. It was like 100 rivers converging into the sea, and it entered his body and then spread to his divine sense. There was also some extremely pure green energy that contained an unusually dense aura of life. It tempered his body bit by bit. This green energy should be the power of the elven race's support, and the elven energy that the elven emperor's seal has attracted. Chu Yang was secretly distinguishing and calculating in his heart. And this power coming from all directions should be the power of destiny of the newly ascended imperial throne Cheung Shao. No wonder the Saint Monarch is immortal and indestructible. It turns out that he has such a powerful power of destiny to support him. Compared to the power of destiny of the other heavenly emperors, it's much more powerful. Under the support of such power, how can there be any accidents? But then, he was puzzled again. But there seems to be something that doesn't make sense. Since I can feel it so clearly, and the saint has been on the throne for more than 1,000,000 years, his cultivation shouldn't be at this level, right? It should be higher. This is something that I can't understand. He discussed this problem with Mo Qingwu, Zi Xieching and the others when he was free during the march. However, they snorted at him. "Are you stupid?" Zi Xieching's words were the most impolite. "This power of fate that comes from the heavens and earth is the most majestic and bright. Any evil person would avoid it like the plague. Only those who are righteous and hardworking can be compatible with it. Who are you? You're always thinking about exterminating the extraterrestrial demons and protecting heaven. When have you ever had any selfish desires? How can you not feel it? But what about the saint? He looked like a righteous monarch, but what was he like deep down in his bones? When did he really think about the people of the world? For his own selfish desires, he even killed his own father. How can he be recognized by the purest power of the world? His own cultivation and body are completely contrary to the essence of this power of destiny. It's already lucky that he didn't suffer a backlash. He still wants to be supported by this power." The god of archery also explained with a smile. "So, as long as the saint doesn't give up on his despicable thoughts, he will never be able to enjoy such power. As for why the Eastern Sovereign became the #1 person after De, it was also because of this point. Also, the Saint Lord's strength was not weak and was more than a level stronger than the Demon Empress. However, although the Demon Empress was at a disadvantage when fighting with him, she was still able to hold him back. It might be because of the blessing from the Demon Emperor Heaven that she was able to contend with the Saint Lord who was going all out." "I see." Chu Yang was enlightened. Chapter 2652. Chu Yang had always been puzzled. His strength was clearly not inferior to Dong Huang's, and he felt that he was already above the Demon Empress. However, the Demon Empress could entangle the saint for quite some time, but when it was his turn, if it wasn't for the heaven-layered divine technique, his Dantian, and the Calamity Sword, he wouldn't be the saint's opponent at all. These were probably the magical effects of his luck. Mo Qingwu blinked and asked, "In that case, the saint only needs to turn over a new leaf, and he will really be invincible in the world?" This sentence made everyone laugh. "A leopard cannot change its spots." Chu Yang smiled. "If he wants to obtain this power, The first step is to destroy all his 10,000 saints' true spirits. Do you think he can bear to do that? Everyone burst into laughter. But thinking about it carefully, this was indeed the case. Since the sage had already reached this step, even if he knew that turning back would save him, it was impossible for him to turn back. This was because his first step had already been wrong. Starting over from the beginning wasn't something that a person like him could do. With an extremely evil mentality, he would not feel that it was a sin to do those things. But once he came to his senses, just the condemnation of his conscience would be enough to drive him to his death. So, he can only be evil to the end. Because his wickedness has already reached the point of no return. Chu Yang sighed. He remembered that there was a sentence in the book that he got from that strange palace. Lay down the butcher's knife and become a Buddha immediately. This sentence probably meant that no matter how cruel an evil person was, as long as he laid down the butcher's knife, he could become a Buddha, a transcendent existence. But after that sentence, there was another sentence written by that mysterious person. That sentence was, a butcher's knife that could be laid down was definitely not a real butcher's knife. A real butcher's knife could not be laid down. To this sentence, Chu Yang deeply agreed. An evil person was an evil person. There was no such thing as no longer killing, no longer being an evil person. This march was unusually peaceful and stable. Along the way, they could occasionally see the experts of Demon Emperor Heaven hunting down the remnants of Saint Emperor Palace. One small battle after another. Every time Chu Yang encountered one, he would order the army to stop and observe for a moment. Then, when he returned, he would always sigh. The archer god and the others also sighed. There are quite a few myriad holiness true spirits among these people. The god of archery heaved a long sigh. Along the way, we have seen quite a lot of people without true spirits after death. Not to mention the fact that the massacre this time covers all 10 heavens and earth and the entire Heaven Imperial Court. Just how many will there be? Yes, if we calculate according to the current ratio. The faster the Heaven Imperial Court slaughtered the Saint Emperor Palace, the faster the Saint Emperor would recover from his injuries. Because all the forces in the Heaven Imperial Court are killing the 10,000 saints' true spirit, which is also equivalent to all the forces in the Heaven Imperial Court channeling energy for the Saint Monarch to recover from his injuries. This skill is so evil that it makes one's hair stand on end, Xi Xiecheng said with hatred. So this time, Holy Emperor Palace didn't organize a decent counterattack at all. In fact, Holy Emperor Palace didn't organize any large-scale counterattack at all. This is also the sage's deliberate indulgence. Chu Yang said, the mentality of this kind of person is that he absolutely cannot suffer losses. I would rather destroy the world, but I still want revenge. Harming the world to benefit myself, as long as it is beneficial to me. So what if the world is destroyed? On the contrary, if I don't exist, even if the world is peaceful for a long time, it is still beneficial to me. The god of archery and the others smiled bitterly and nodded. Yes, Cloud Venerable Master was such a person. He was a selfish person from head to toe. Anyway. Now, the existence of the experts in the Saint Emperor Palace was insignificant to the Cloud Master. If you want to kill them, then kill them. It's even better if you kill them all. I just happen to need this energy to heal my injuries now. Once the Cloud Master recovers, he will definitely bring about another bloodbath. Chu Yang sighed. Chu Yang only sighed, but he wasn't too worried about it. During this period of time, the strength of his brothers had also improved by leaps and bounds. Especially after they each found their own great Tao, their improvement was even more obvious. Even the weakest among them could escape from the Saint Emperor even if they could not defeat him. It was not a problem for them to escape unscathed. Moreover, the Saint Emperor now no longer had the Mountain River Sword, which was a great killing weapon, in his hands. The fairy forest was just ahead. At this moment, Chu Yang unexpectedly received news from the Tianji Intelligence Department. Dong Huangshuelehan set up a trap on the way back to the Eastern Royal Heavens to lure the remaining forces of the Saint Emperor Palace to seek revenge. As expected, when they were about to return to the Eastern Royal Heavens, They were ambushed by the remaining forces of the Saint Emperor Palace. Those who participated in the battle included the Prime Minister of the Eastern Royal Heavens, Xueqi, Dong Huang himself, and many elites of the Eastern Royal Heavens. On the side of the Saint Emperor Palace, the Saint Empress personally led more than 300 experts. Both sides fought a great battle, and in the end, both sides suffered great losses. Other than the Saint Empress who escaped with injuries, the other experts of the Saint Emperor Palace who participated in the battle were all killed. On the side of the Eastern Royal Heavens, the Prime Minister was severely injured, Xueqi was severely injured, and Dong Huang was lightly injured. Dong Huang has safely returned to the Eastern Royal Heavens, and he announced that Chu Yang will be the Jade Sky Imperial Throne. This news caused everyone's spirits to tremble. However, Chu Yang and the others who knew the inside story felt their chests tighten, and a strong sense of sorrow rose in their hearts. This sorrow wasn't for themselves, but for Dong Huang and Xueqi. This battle, Chu Yang sighed. I really don't know how Dong Huang and Xueqi feel. With the strength of the Eastern Royal Heavens and the cultivation of Dong Huang and Xueqi, if they fought with all their strength, I believe that even Saint Empress Xuexian wouldn't be able to escape unscathed. However, in the end, Xueqi was severely injured, Dong Huang was lightly injured, and Xuexian was the only survivor and luckily escaped. If nothing strange happened, no one would believe it. Chu Yang smiled bitterly. Strange things? Your Majesty, are you saying that there's something strange about this battle? The 5 fairy gods were puzzled by Chu Yang's words. It was obviously a complete victory, so what was wrong? There's nothing strange about it. I'm just certain that the Saint Empress was able to escape in the end because Dong Huang intentionally let her escape. Chu Yang sighed. That's right. With Shui Leihan's scheming and deep foresight, as well as his understanding of them, since they had already set up a trap and waited for the enemy's arrival, and with the help of a super expert like Xueqi, who had already reached the level of martial emperor, it meant that they had complete confidence. How could they let Xuexian escape? He even caused Xueqi to be severely injured. What are you talking about? The god of archery was puzzled. Why can't I understand a single word? Chu Yang's expression was a little desolate. He said, Of course you don't understand. Even Saint Empress Xuexian, who escaped by a fluke, probably doesn't understand why Shui Leihan, who had the complete upper hand, would make such a stupid move. Or maybe he's rejoicing over his luck. He sighed deeply. Because Saint Empress Xuexian, besides being the most beautiful woman in the world, is also Dong Huang's younger sister. This news was really shocking. Even with the god of archery's cultivation and millions of years of cultivation, he couldn't help but be shocked and dumbfounded when he heard this news. This matter, or rather Dong Huang's true identity, Xuexian herself doesn't know. Saint Venerable Master Yun also doesn't know. Otherwise, in these millions of years, just because of this relationship, Shui Leihan would have died countless times. Chu Yang said lightly. This sentence was really not wrong at all. No matter what Shui Leihan was thinking, he didn't acknowledge his identity, and didn't reveal it. But there must be one reason. Once this identity was exposed, the relationship between them would be clear. Then, Saint Venerable would have countless more chances to kill Shui Leihan out of thin air. As for Xuexian, a woman who didn't even care about her own father, why would she care about the life and death of her own brother? The trap and ambush this time must have caused Dong Huang to break off from his heart. In fact, this battle was just as Chu Yang had guessed. The decisive battle this time had really hurt Dong Huang, especially his heart. Dong Huang was silent now. His silence came from 2 sentences. They came from 2 different people, each with a sentence. The Prime Minister was seriously injured. After returning to the Eastern Royal Heavens, he once asked Chu Yang anxiously, Your Majesty, this time, I really don't understand. Your Majesty deliberately showed mercy to the Divine Empress and even let her go. Is it to set a long line to catch a big fish? This was the Prime Minister's probing question. Shui Leihan's face darkened and he didn't give an answer. Looking at this good brother, good subordinate, and good minister who had been loyal to him for a lifetime, he was actually speechless for a moment. Actually, there was no need for an answer. Because even the Prime Minister, who asked this question, knew that his guess was absolutely unreliable. Now, in the Saint Emperor Palace, all the subordinate forces of Saint Venerable Master had completely collapsed. How could there be any big fish to catch? Then, what was the reason for Dong Wang to show mercy to Xue Xian'er? There was another sentence from Xue Xian'er. Xue Leihan, I won't be grateful to you if you let me go today. You destroyed my and my husband's life's work. This hatred is irreconcilable. One day, I want you to die in my hands. Your soul will be destroyed and you will never be reincarnated. Xue Leihan walked to the window and sighed deeply. You're just too soft-hearted. At the side, Xue Qi, who was covered in wounds, complained fiercely. The so-called Dong Wang is actually such an indecisive person. I've really misjudged you. Chapter 2653. Now, there were only the two of them in the main hall. So Xue Qi didn't have any scruples when he spoke. Xue Leihan said, If you weren't soft-hearted, why did you suffer such serious injuries? Xue Qi immediately shut his mouth. He didn't say a word. Although he kept snorting and his face was full of indignation, even his eyes were filled with pain. Is this enough for this battle? Xue Leihan asked faintly. Tears suddenly fell from Xue Qi's eyes. Did you see our father and mother watching from the sky? Was their friendship enough for this battle? We can let her go, really. Because she's our sister, but if she gains power, will she let us go? The moonlight outside the window shone on the two of them. The fog was hazy, like a dream. This battle was really unforgettable for the two of them. For so many years, Xue Leihan had been paying attention to the Saint Emperor's palace, especially Xue Xian'er. Although Xue Xian'er didn't know that there were two brothers with the same blood as her in this world. However, these two brothers always paid attention to their biological sister and never forgot about her for even a moment. They paid attention to everything, including what Xue Xian'er usually did and what decisions she made. Xue Leihan knew everything clearly. But because of this, Xue Leihan and Xue Qi's hearts became colder and more disappointed. Since that time, Xue Xian'er used extremely cruel means to kill a few concubines of Shangren Yun. That time, Xue Xian cruelly killed a few children of Shangren Yun. That time, Xue Xian'er summoned all her admirers to the Saint Emperor's palace. Then, those people all became Shangren Yun's lackeys. That time, things happened again and again. It made Xue Leihan and Xue Qi feel disappointed, hateful, and helpless. You killed your love rival. It could be explained as a woman's nature to be jealous. Although your methods were too extreme. But it could still be understood more or less. But why did you kill those babies? Those babies were your husband's flesh and blood. You killed them so wantonly. Do you still have any humanity? If that's all, it's still your family's business, and it's hard for outsiders to comment on it. But you tricked all your admirers here and used their admiration and infatuation to lure them here. Then, your husband turned all of them into myriad saints' true spirits, turning them into walking corpses. What does this count as? This kind of behavior could no longer be explained by innate coldness. This kind of behavior was already insane and inhumane. It made one's hair stand on end. There were so many people who were qualified to admire and even pursue Xue Xian'er. Which one of them was an ordinary person? Who didn't have a high cultivation base? Who wasn't born with pride? However, it was precisely because they loved the wrong person that they were cheated into giving up their entire lives. Is loving you a sin? When Xue Xian'er made use of her power to summon all the experts of the Xue clan who had been stranded outside, they were all gathered together. Then, he turned all these people into Cloud Master's lackeys. Furthermore, it was at that time that Xue Qi and Xue Leihan's identities were almost exposed and they died an unnatural death. The two brothers had finally given up on their little sister. Xue Xian had lost all her conscience and was beyond redemption. It was only recently that they found out that Cloud Master was really the master of myriad saints' true spirits. Then, there was the best explanation for why Xue Xian'er tried so hard to gather all these experts. However, this explanation made Xue Leihan and Xue Qi's hearts turn cold. So you already found out at that time. Your husband is the master of myriad saints' true spirits. So Xue Xian'er was the first person to know about Cloud Master's true identity and background. You clearly knew that your husband was such an evil person. But you still tricked all the people who had feelings for you here and let your husband turn them into myriad saints' true spirits. Xue Leihan and Xue Qi had completely given up on their little sister. However, that didn't mean that they would no longer pay attention to her. Just like guarding against an enemy. Pay attention to her. This time. When Xue Leihan left the Demon Emperor Heaven, he sent a message to Xue Qi, prepare for battle. Trap, how and how, Xue Qi immediately started to make preparations. Therefore, on the surface, it looked like Xue Leihan was returning to the Eastern Royal Heaven alone. However, in reality, the top experts of the Eastern Royal Heaven had already disguised themselves under the leadership of Xue Qi, the Prime Minister and General Lan, to come to his aid. How could Xue Qi and Xue Leihan, these two brothers, not understand their little sister's vengeful nature and her strong desire for revenge? In essence, Xue Xian'er was the same as Cloud Master. They were both ruthless characters who would take advantage of others and would rather die than suffer losses. Otherwise, how could they be together for more than 1,000,000 years? This time, Cloud Master's reputation was ruined and his foundation was destroyed. In fact, he had almost lost his life. With Xue Xian'er's character, she naturally hated Xue Leihan and the others to the core. As long as she was given a chance, she would definitely take revenge. And Xue Xian'er's favorite palace happened to be on the path that Xue Leihan had to pass through on his way back to the Eastern Royal Heaven. Xue Leihan was also traveling alone, so how could Xue Xian'er let go of such a heaven-sent opportunity? At that time, all the people who went against the saint were either accompanied by a large number of people, or their whereabouts were mysterious and unpredictable. Dongwang was the only one who traveled tens of thousands of miles to return to Dongwang alone. And it was the number one enemy. In Xue Xian'er's opinion, in the entire imperial court, only the East Emperor and the Demon Empress were worthy of fighting with Cloud Master. The Demon Empress was even weaker than them. The main reason was that Xue Leihan had not given up on killing the saint. The East Emperor must be the mastermind of this trap. With such a great hatred and such a good opportunity, how could he not take action? So, this trap was set up. But she did not know that this trap was also set up by Xue Leihan. At the same time, it was also a life-saving move. Therefore, this trap was set up by Xue Leihan and Xue Xian'er together. Xue Xian'er would definitely not let Xue Leihan return to the sea, so she would definitely kill him. And Xue Leihan set up this trap. Firstly, it was to destroy the last remaining strength of the Saint Emperor Palace. Secondly, it was indeed to protect himself. If Xue Qi and the rest were not arranged in advance, and Xue Leihan was not willing to disguise himself and go back on this journey. In this trap, there was a possibility that he would be killed by Xue Xian'er's various despicable tricks. Xue Leihan's guess was not wrong at all. Ever since they started their journey, after the initial peaceful journey of 40,000 miles, they started to be attacked by the experts sent by Xue Xian'er one after another. These attacks did not really hope to kill the East Emperor. But they were meant to test him. To test whether or not Dongwang had any hidden experts accompanying him on his journey. At the same time, these attacks were also to delay Xue Leihan's pace, giving Xue Xian'er ample time to prepare and set up a perfect killing trap. After all, the Saint Emperor Palace was now in a precarious situation, like a rat on the street that everyone wanted to beat up. To organize a considerable battle force, and the target of the attack was the world-famous East Emperor. If they did not have sufficient preparation and buffer time, it was basically impossible. The East Emperor traveled alone for thousands of miles and was constantly attacked along the way. Although they were all small-scale attacks, they were accompanied by an endless stream of sneaky tricks. Especially after half of the journey, the frequency of such attacks became more and more frequent. That was. The East Emperor had already guessed that Shui Xian'er's preparation might have some kind of problem. Otherwise, she would not be so crazy and unscrupulous in trying to stop him. The only explanation was that she was not ready yet. In fact, it was also reasonable. Now, the people of the Saint Emperor Palace were being besieged by the whole world, and they would be attacked by the people of the Heaven Imperial Court any time and anywhere. On such a basis, it was definitely very difficult for Shui Xian'er to organize a strong force. Especially since the people of the Saint Emperor Palace were usually high-profile and did not need to conceal themselves at all. Now, the situation had changed with the passage of time. But it meant that the majority of them were exposed to the world. To suddenly face such a terrible situation, the experts of the Saint Emperor Palace had never encountered before, and the losses would definitely be huge. But Shui Leihan believed that with his sister's ability, she could definitely do it. He would definitely be able to do it. That killing plot would definitely be formed. Sure enough, when they were about to reach the East Royal Sky, the large-scale death attack that Shui Xian'er had set up finally began in a remote mountain forest. Shui Xian'er personally took action, and more than 1,000 experts of the Saint Emperor Palace were almost all involved in this battle. There was only one goal: to kill Dongwang Shui Leihan. With such a setup, it was not difficult to see how much Shui Xian'er hated Shui Leihan. Shui Leihan still could not forget that moment when Shui Xian'er suddenly appeared and looked at him. And the words she said, "Shui Leihan, you beast! Today is the day you die!" Then, she unreservedly used the charm of the world technique. 1,300 experts of the Saint Emperor Palace also went all out. Facing the peerless charm that was said to be able to charm all the men in the world, Shui Leihan did not feel charmed. He only felt sad, or maybe uncomfortable, and sighed inexplicably. Anyway, he did not feel tempted. Your charm of the world technique might work on any man in the world, but it was not effective on me and Shui Qi. That's because we're your biological brothers. In this world, was there any younger sister who could seduce her elder brother? This was absolutely impossible. Before you could charm him, he gave her a big slap and said, "Stupid girl!" But the pressure that Shui Leihan had to bear in that battle was still enormous. Shui Xian'er was indeed an expert in scheming. Just the choice of terrain made it difficult for Dongwang to move, and he could only choose to fight head-on. In this battle, Dongwang fought 1 against 1,000 in this desolate valley. He fought until the sun and moon lost their light. It was also in this battle that Shui Leihan experienced his sister's true strength for the first time. Back then, Shui Xian'er was not only the most beautiful woman in the world, but also the most proud genius of the Shui clan. All these years, her cultivation did not fall behind. Just as he took over, Shui Leihan felt the enormous pressure from Shui Xian'er. Chapter 2654. Although Shui Xian'er's strength was not as strong as his, there was not much difference between them. She was almost on par with the Demon Empress. The battle went on like a raging fire. It lasted from midnight to dawn. Almost half of the experts sent by the Saint Emperor Palace had died. However, Shui Leihan was also covered in wounds and his vitality was greatly depleted. At this moment, Shui Xian'er suddenly retreated. She asked while sweating profusely, "Shui Leihan, why did you show mercy to me time and time again?" This matter really puzzled her. In this night's battle, Shui Leihan could easily injure her severely several times, but he did not really attack. Instead, because of these few moments of hesitation, Shui Leihan was injured. This man, this Dongwang, would rather injure himself than kill his enemy? Why? Shui Xian'er was full of doubts. Could it be because of the effect of charm the world? That was definitely not the case. Shui Xian'er was well aware that her charm of the world had almost never failed. In the past, she had only failed once on Zihao. Even Yun Shangren had been held back by her charm of the world before he reached a certain level of strength. However, today's Dongwang was different from Zihao's disdain for her. He was also different from Cloud Lord, who exceeded the limit of her charm because his strength was too high. When Xue Leihan looked at her, he only felt pity, and a kind of hatred. However, he did not have the intention to be charmed by her. Xue Leihan sighed deeply. His heart was full of mixed feelings. You can be heartless to me, to the whole family, and to the whole world. But I, no matter how much I hate you, how can I bear to kill my own sister? There's no reason. Xue Leihan was still fighting with all his might. He swallowed the bitterness in his heart. Now, even if I tell you my identity, what can you do? Will you let me go? Or will you repent and turn over a new leaf? There are some things in life that cannot be wrong. One mistake. But there is no turning back. When you treated the Xue clan as your dowry, when you sent the entire Xue clan into the abyss, when you killed your parents, and angered your grandparents to death, when you made everyone in the Xue clan a stepping stone for your husband's hegemony, when you made everyone in the Xue clan a stepping stone, his life was already destined. I just don't want you to die too early and too tragically, Xue Leihan said painfully. However, this answer caused Xue Xian'er to misunderstand something. Xue Xian'er continued to attack. The beautiful face of the celestial being sighed. She was no longer as seductive as before. Instead, she looked lovely and lovable. She said softly, Your Majesty, I really didn't know. Your Majesty, the Eastern Emperor, had actually been thinking about me all this time? Xue Leihan's face twitched. Nonsense! He shouted angrily. Xue Xian'er slashed her saber across Xue Leihan's body, causing blood to spurt out. She said with some disappointment, Your Majesty, are you reminiscing about your youth? Are you thinking about the frivolity of your youth? This man actually had feelings for me? It wasn't a seductive feeling, but true feelings? This unexpected discovery gave Xue Xian a pleasant surprise. The pride in his heart soared like never before. So much so that he was even more confident in this battle. Since you have feelings for me, you won't really kill me or hurt me. But I can really hurt you and kill you. With just one sentence, Xue Xian'er, who had changed her strategy, was already deliberately trying to lead Xue Leihan's emotions back to his youth under her charm. As long as Xue Leihan really remembered the love he had back then, even if it was only for a moment. Once he fell into that kind of melancholy and sadness, Xue Xian would be able to kill this terrifying enemy instantly. Xue Leihan said furiously, Shut up! Although he wouldn't be led into that kind of emotional state that Xue Xian'er imagined, he would be led into another kind of emotional state. That was an unprecedented manic state of mind. The person in front of him was his own sister. But this sister of his didn't hesitate to use such a despicable method to deal with him. Including those whom she had dealt with previously, those young heroes who were once infatuated with her beauty and gave up all their feelings for her, those once proud and unyielding young heroes had long since turned into a pile of yellow soil. Little sister, is this how you ruined their lives? Thinking of this, Xue Leihan felt a deep sense of sorrow. Love was originally a beautiful thing in the hearts of people in the world. No matter whether it was successful or not, those memories that belonged to the youth would always be the wealth of a lifetime, and the most beautiful memories. But in Xue Xian'er's hands, they were reduced to a tool. Using this tool, Xue Xian'er was actually successful in dealing with those who used to like her. Xue Xian'er! Xue Leihan roared to the sky. Heaven has given you an unparalleled beauty. But it has also given you an unparalleled evil heart. Xue Xian'er smiled even more innocently and charmingly, making one feel tender affection for her. Really? My Emperor Dongwang? Will you not love me, not dote on me, hurt me, or kill me just because I have a bad heart? The blue saber in her hand continued to attack. With a flash of her charming figure, 7 to 8 clones suddenly appeared, and a strange fragrance wafted into Xue Leihan's nostrils. Xue Leihan cried out in pain. Xue Xian'er! You stupid woman, am I stupid? Am I really stupid? If you say I'm stupid, then I'll be stupid. Xue Xian'er smiled coquettishly, her face pure and innocent. She danced gracefully in the wind, looking indescribably graceful and graceful. But every move she made was extremely vicious. She purposely targeted the fatal points, and used all kinds of methods. Xue Leihan dashed left and right, and the experts of the Saint Emperor Palace were annihilated by him one after another. But the wounds on his body were also increasing. Even though they were just superficial wounds, they were still affecting his strength more and more. The accumulation of injuries finally affected Eastern Emperor's strength, and also caused the gap between him and Xue Xian'er to become smaller and smaller. Eastern Emperor, you're very tired now. Xue Xian'er's gentle voice sounded. Don't you want to rest? How about letting me take care of His Majesty? Xue Leihan really couldn't move his limbs. If he had truly hardened his heart and attacked with his full strength, even Xue Xian would have been defeated in a matter of moments, or even be heavily injured. However, it was precisely because of this that he couldn't bear to truly kill her, causing him to fall into an indescribably perilous situation, where he was surrounded by dangers. Xue Xian'er, this vicious woman, made use of his subtle mentality that he couldn't bear to kill her. That was why she was so unscrupulous. Her targeted strategy was very successful. At this point, Eastern Emperor's fate seemed to be ominous. Fortunately, at this critical moment, Xueqi finally arrived with reinforcements. This was a trap for both sides, and at this moment, it finally collided with each other. Seeing his elder brother covered in blood and in danger, Xueqi went crazy on the spot. All the experts of the Dongwang Heaven also went crazy. They rushed forward without any regard for their lives, and quickly surrounded the battlefield to kill. On one side, there were tired soldiers who had been fighting for a whole night, and on the other side, there were fresh troops who had just joined the battlefield. The experts of the Saint Emperor Palace were defeated instantly, and they were utterly defeated. Screams rang out one after another. Seeing that the Emperor was in danger, the experts of the Dongwang Heaven went all out. Xueqi also took over from Xue Leihan at the first moment, and faced the strongest enemy, Xue Xian'er. He scolded, "Heartless bitch! You still have the face to attack us!" Xue Xian'er was furious when she heard that and fought with all her might. Originally, Xue Xian'er's strength was almost at the level of the Demon Empress, and she was undoubtedly much stronger than Xueqi. But in this night's battle, Xue Xian'er was the main force holding Eastern Emperor back, and she had exhausted a lot of energy. Xueqi was also an expert of the First Emperor level, so the difference in strength between the two sides wasn't that big. Moreover, she was fresh troops now. Although she couldn't win against Xue Xian'er, it was not a problem to hold her back. After a while, the Prime Minister also joined the battle. The two experts fought Xue Xian'er together, and the battle here was unusually fierce. But at this moment, the Saint Emperor Palace was obviously defeated. Xue Xian'er couldn't help but think of escaping to save her own life. After all, in Xue Xian'er's heart, no one's life was more important than her own. But Xueqi and the Prime Minister both tried their best to hold her back, and Xue Xian'er didn't want to be hurt by the three of them, so she couldn't find a way to escape. Finally, when the last person of the Saint Emperor Palace died under the sword of General Lan, Xue Xian'er decided to break out at all costs. Sadly, her decision was too late. Right now, it was already too late. Even if she risked her life to break free from the entanglement of Snow Seven and the Prime Minister, she wouldn't be able to do so because the forces of the Eastern Royal Immortal Realms had already surrounded her. Just now, she had help, but she couldn't break out. Now that there was no help, it was naturally impossible for her to break out. Seeing that they were surrounded, Xueqi and the Prime Minister became more confident. Their attacks became denser and denser, and gradually weaved into a big net. They had the upper hand, and Xue Xian'er was about to be killed by their swords. At this point, Xue Xian finally lost all hope. At this point, there was no way to escape. But at this moment, when she stared at Xueqi with her desperate and sorrowful eyes, Xueqi suddenly became absent-minded. The sharp sword that was about to pierce her chest inexplicably stopped at that moment. She was still her sister after all, Xueqi might be absent-minded because of family love, but Xue Xian'er wasn't. She didn't know why the enemy would be absent-minded at this critical moment, and show such a flaw that shouldn't have happened. But she firmly grasped this God-given opportunity. At this moment of despair, there was an inexplicable glimmer of hope. Xue Xian'er attacked with both her sword and saber, as well as her fists and feet. Break out! Chapter 2655. At that moment, the Prime Minister lost Xueqi's cooperation and was hit 3 times before he could react. Xueqi was also hit twice by her sword. Then, Xue Xian'er broke out of the encirclement. She actually chose Xue Leihan's direction to break out of the encirclement. The encirclement was complete. Even if she got rid of the previous 2, the remaining people were not easy to deal with. Since Xue Leihan has feelings for her, he will definitely not stop her. Among these people, although his cultivation was the highest, it was more likely for her to break out of the encirclement from him than from the others. Even if she couldn't break out, at least, her life wouldn't be in danger. This was what Xue Xian'er hoped for. But she wasn't wrong at all. Xue Leihan did not stop her at all. He watched her break out of the encirclement. When her slim figure disappeared into the night, her voice was filled with hatred. Xue Leihan, I won't be grateful to you if you let me go today. You destroyed our life's work. This hatred is irreconcilable. One day, I want you to die in my hands. Your soul will be destroyed and you will never be reincarnated. Xue Leihan sighed deeply. This was also something that the Prime Minister and General Lan could not understand. Seeing that the Divine Empress was about to die here, why did His Majesty East Emperor and Xueqi make 2 mistakes at the same time? There was a gap between Xueqi and Xue Xian'er, so it was reasonable for Xueqi to make a mistake in a fierce battle. Actually, it was not. Even if Xueqi was not as powerful as Xue Xian'er, he was still a peak expert after the First Emperor realm. Furthermore, he had the support of the Prime Minister. He already had an absolute advantage in the battle. How could he make such a mistake at a critical moment? And His Majesty East Emperor. Although His Majesty East Emperor fought for a whole night, his body was full of injuries and his strength was not as good as normal. But his injuries were mostly superficial. There were no internal injuries at all. His reinforcements had arrived in time. For an expert of his level, such a small injury would give him a chance to circulate his origin energy. Even if his injuries were not completely healed, they would be more or less healed. Moreover, no matter how much His Majesty East Emperor's energy was depleted, he was still better than Xue Xian'er. At the very least, he was much better than Xue Xian'er. If he went all out, how could Xue Xian'er escape? But the result was that Xue Xian'er escaped in his direction. Another piece of evidence that could not be considered evidence was Xue Xian'er's last sentence. If you let me go today, I won't be grateful to you. The latter part was fine, but the first half was a clear indication of the fact that His Majesty Dong Wang had held back and allowed him to leave. This is too strange. Even if the Divine Empress could revive with the help of her doppelganger, what was destroyed was her original body. How much damage was that? According to His Majesty Dong Wang's previous deductions, if his main body was destroyed, even if he could revive with the help of his clone, it would be very difficult for him to improve his own strength. How could he miss such a good opportunity? Why didn't His Majesty Dong Wang and Xueqi do anything at the last moment? On their way back to the Eastern Royal Immortal Realms, this question lingered in their hearts. Dong Wang and Xueqi looked equally upset. An atmosphere of depression, unwillingness, and powerlessness spread and grew. Occasionally, His Majesty Dong Wang and Xueqi could be heard arguing in a low voice. It seemed that the 2 brothers were dissatisfied. Why don't you make a move? Can't you see that I'm injured? Why don't you make a move? Then why did you hold back before? Don't tell me you didn't hold back? Bastard! Shut up! The 2 of them were her elder brothers. Their hearts were equally bitter, equally powerless, and equally depressed. They sat facing each other, complained for a while, and then sighed at the same time. If there's a next time. Dongwang Shuelehan finally spoke. Don't hold back. Shueqi rolled his eyes. He snorted in disdain. You'd better convince yourself first. When you can't make a move, don't use your big brother's strength to teach me a lesson. Shuelehan sighed helplessly again. Suddenly, he kicked Shueqi's private parts twice fiercely. He scolded him in a low voice. Other than using sex on me, what else can you do? What are you doing? What are you doing? Shueqi's miserable howl resounded through the air. She hissed in cold air and lowered her voice, out of breath. Shuelehan. You're good, you're really good. You can't bear to kill your younger sister, but you're quite willing to kill your younger brother who has always been loyal to you. You're awesome. Really awesome. I'll admire you, okay? If you can't do it, even our parents will admire you. That should be enough, right? After a round of suppressed scolding, the two brothers looked at each other. In the end, they still couldn't bring themselves to do it. Then, Shuelehan ordered to summon the Prime Minister and General Lan for a discussion. Some things had to be made clear. He couldn't keep his subordinates in the dark. If he kept hiding things, it would only cool the hearts of the loyal officials. General Lan arrived very quickly, but the old Prime Minister only arrived after a while. When he arrived, his expression was very strange. Shuelehan didn't pay much attention to this. There's something that I need to tell the two of you. I don't know how to start. Shuelehan was a little tired. Sitting on the chair, he was also a little lost, and there was also an indescribable sense of loss. Your Majesty, please tell us. The two of them were a little nervous. His Majesty had never been like this. This time, was he going to talk about something important? Was that why he was so hesitant? You all know that my real name is Shuelehan. But I'm afraid you don't know about my other identity. Shuelehan let out a long sigh. His Majesty's other identity? The Prime Minister and General Lan's hearts skipped a beat when they heard this. This was indeed something that they didn't know. They really didn't know that His Majesty had another identity. Dongwang Shuelehan had been famous for millions of years. Who didn't know about him? What other identity did he have? On the soft couch behind, Shueqi, who was recuperating from his injuries, coughed softly and said, Boss, are you really going to reveal this? Shuelehan's face twitched painfully. He said, I can't let my brothers bleed for no reason. It's time to reveal this secret. Behind him, Shueqi was silent for a while. Then he said, I understand. The words of the two brothers made the Prime Minister and Great General Lan somewhat confused. What was the meaning of this? I think both of you should remember this sentence. Shuelehan let out a long sigh and recited. The sky is full of clouds, the night is drunk, the world is covered with snow. How can we not remember this? The Prime Minister and General Lan laughed at the same time. These were the three biggest clans in the Heaven Imperial Court millions of years ago. The sky is full of clouds, referring to the Yun clan. The night is drunk, referring to the Zhe clan. The last one was the number one financial magnate in the world, the Shui clan. Back then, these three clans were like three legs of a tripartite balance of power, and almost controlled the entire Heaven Imperial Court. However, after the three clans were destroyed, there was a period of continuous chaos. After the chaos, there was the matter of Emperor 1, Empress 1, and only Saint Monarch dominating the world. The Yun clan was actually the family of only Saint Monarch Yun Shangren. Back then, only Saint Monarch Yun Shangren gathered everyone to fight against the Holy Devil and destroyed the Holy Spirit. After that battle, the Yun clan also declined. At that time, we only thought that the Yun clan had sacrificed too much and lost too much. But now, I finally know that the head of the Yun family was actually the Myriad Saint's true demon. Then, after the Holy Devil fell, it's not hard to understand why the Yun clan declined. Moreover, they even supported only Saint Monarch. This exchange from the Yun clan to the Holy Emperor Palace was definitely worth it, Shuelehan said. And the other clan, the Zui clan, was constantly weakened during the chaos of the martial world. However, in the end, the heavenly emperor Wuching, finally appeared. Therefore, the Zui clan still continued its glory for 1,000,000 years. The Prime Minister said with a face full of wrinkles. That's true. It's a pity that the Shui clan, one of the 3 great clans, was sacrificed for Master Yun. Other than Shui Xian'er, the rest of the Shui clan were all killed. General Lan sighed. However, the Prime Minister glared at him fiercely. His Majesty Dong Wang did not mention this at this time to reminisce about the past. In addition, Dong Wang was originally surnamed Shui. General Lan's eyes widened as he thought of this. Looks like the 2 brothers have guessed that my surname is Shui. This can explain a lot. Shui Leihan smiled bitterly and sighed. My original name was not Shui Leihan. My name was Shui Shaoran at that time. First young master of the Shui clan. General Lan only managed to say half a sentence before he was suddenly choked by the neck like a screaming chicken. Yes, the first young master of the Shui clan, Shui Shaoran, is me. Shui Leihan sighed. The Prime Minister and General Lan looked at each other at the same time, dumbfounded. After a long time, the 2 of them finally reacted. Then, the Divine Empress Shui Xian'er we killed yesterday, isn't she your sister? Shui Leihan nodded deeply. A look of pain flashed across his face. Behind him, Shui Qi on the soft couch also sighed softly. The Prime Minister and General Lan were dumbfounded. So that's the truth. They finally understood that His Majesty Donghuang's cultivation was much higher than the Divine Empress. Even if he was surrounded by many enemies, he would not be so seriously injured. So it was because this brother still could not bear to do anything to his sister. Your Majesty, there must be another reason? The Prime Minister asked, puzzled. It's a long story, the past is unbearable to recall. Shui Leihan sighed painfully. Back then, the competition between the big clans was fierce, and the descendants were secretly sent out. Even in the clan, it was a secret. So at that time, at most, we only knew that there was a first young master of the Shui clan called Shui Shaoran, but no one had actually seen this person. Chapter 2656. Cloud Master pursued Shui Xian'er madly. My sister. The Shui clan also approved of this son-in-law. My father also supported Cloud Master with all his might. At that time, he sent me a secret message and said, in the future, with Cloud Master as the son-in-law and me as the son in secret, the greatest glory that the Shui clan has been pursuing could be achieved in this lifetime. The Prime Minister and General Lan nodded secretly. Thinking of the situation at that time, if things had really developed as they had, the possibility of this happening was indeed very high. But at that time, I had already vaguely felt that Cloud Master was a little unreliable. So I reminded my father to be careful, but my father disagreed with my words and said, "Aren't all ambitious people arrogant, conceited and scheming the same?" So we agreed that unless it was to rule the world, my identity as the young master of the Shui clan would never be exposed. Perhaps it was because after listening to my words, although my father didn't think much of it, he was still used to preparing for a rainy day. At the same time, the records of the identities of a few other younger brothers were also destroyed. Shui Leihan's voice became deeper and deeper. The Prime Minister and General Lan both felt a wave of sorrow and a kind of admiration. These big clans with a long history were really not ordinary people. They were indeed preparing for a rainy day and taking preventive measures. At this time, a mumbling voice came from the soft couch behind them. That's right, back then, there was also an elder who was mysteriously expelled from the ancestral home. Elder 7, so it's Shui Qi. Shui Leihan, who was immersed in the past, was instantly enraged. He turned around and kicked him. Damn it! Whose elder are you? Accompanied by a scream, the world was completely silent. The Prime Minister and General Lan were instantly petrified. It was really the first time that they saw His Majesty swearing like this. There was another shock. This blood contract who had always been rude to His Majesty was actually His Majesty's younger brother? In other words, he was also Shui Xian'er's brother. His Majesty, Blood Contract and Shui Xian'er, the three of them were all from the Shui clan. Shuiqi sucked in a breath of cold air and muttered, "You only bully the obedient ones. You can't even bear to touch the disobedient ones." Tui. Shui Leihan sat upright, pretending not to have heard anything. The Prime Minister and General Lan looked embarrassed. He wanted to continue listening, but he didn't dare to interrupt the two brothers. However, the biggest doubt in his heart had already been resolved. The three of them were from the Shui clan. The descendants of the Shui clan were extraordinary. Only three of them were still alive. All of them were outstanding talents. The slight discomfort that originally existed in his heart also completely disappeared at this time. Shui Xian'er was Dong Huang's younger sister. How could her brother bear to kill her? Even if this sister of his had done 1,000 things wrong and done 1,000 evil deeds, but to let a brother kill his own sister with his own hands. It was an extremely cruel thing. Besides, this incident also proved that His Majesty Dong Huang was a sentimental person. If a person could kill his own sister without batting an eyelid, then would he still be Dong Huang? Will just be another saint monarch. And the heavenly emperor of Purple Cloud, Zi Hao. It was also at this time that he became enemies with Guru Yun because of this incident. Shui Leihan's face was filled with endless nostalgia and sincerity. Zi Hao sensed Guru Yun's ambition and went to warn him alone. He told him not to get close to Shui Xian'er in the future. Therefore, he fought with Guru Yun a few times and ruined his plans several times. Guru Yun hated him to the core because of this. However, with Guru Yun's support, the Shui clan actually prospered and became unparalleled. The whole clan was rejoicing, but they didn't know that a huge conspiracy had already begun. Actually, you all know what happened after that. Shui Leihan smiled bitterly. At that time, the Shui clan was annexed and my father died in an accident. The others of the clan died one by one. It just had to be at that time. I was secretly appointed by my father to go to the fairy forest and find some heavenly crystals. The last order my father gave me in his life was to find heavenly crystals for his son-in-law and daughter, to use as newlyweds. Shui Leihan smiled bitterly, but his eyes were indescribably misty. The room was silent. Then, what happened in the future? General Lan asked. I remember at that time, but there was someone who offered a reward for finding the eldest young master of the Shui clan and asking him to return home and take over the family business. Yes. Shui Leihan nodded and said, I also wanted to find out what was going on. So I once changed my appearance and returned home, and saw my younger sister, Shui Xian'er. After confirming my identity, Shui Xian and I hugged each other and cried. The muscles on Shui Leihan's face twitched. He gritted his teeth and said, However, at that time, Shui Xian'er personally stabbed a dagger into my heart. Everyone exclaimed upon hearing this. Although Shui Leihan was right in front of them, they were still shocked. Behind him, Shuiqi sat up abruptly. Big brother, why didn't you mention this before? Is this something to be proud of? What's there to talk about? Shui Leihan smiled bitterly. He pulled open his clothes and revealed an extremely hideous scar on his chest. He said, My cultivation improved by leaps and bounds in the future, and I was already at the stage where I could heal my chronic illness and reconstruct my physical body. However, I still have this scar. At that time, this dagger really stabbed into my heart. Stabbed into his heart. The three of them could feel Dong Huang's feelings at the same time. This stab had pierced right into his heart. Other than the dagger on his physical body, it was also a dagger that went straight to his heart spiritually. Just by listening to this, the three of them already felt a bone-chilling coldness. At that time, I was injured and tried to rush out. Master Yun tried to stop me, and there were also countless experts blocking my way. But I tried my best to fight back and finally rushed out. However, there were still hundreds of wounds on my body. I was chased all the way until I jumped off the cliff. Zihao was already waiting for me below. We had already prepared a corpse to be my substitute. I had already died there, From then on, I left that place. I still remember that day. I remember it clearly. How I rushed out with blood and tears. That day, it was snowing heavily and the wind was bone-chilling. My heart was also extremely cold. From then on, I completely gave up on the name Shui Shaoran. Snow has tears, and every drop is cold. From then on, Shui Leihan was truly born, until today's Shui Leihan. Shui Leihan looked up and sighed. So that's how Shui Leihan's name came about. Behind him, Shuiqi also sighed softly and said softly, "Big brother, you've suffered." Shui Leihan's nose twitched, and he hurriedly took a deep breath. Did he suffer? Until today, when he heard his younger brother's words, Shui Leihan also truly felt that he had really suffered. And that kind of suffering was definitely not something that could be understood by those who had not experienced it personally. His clan was destroyed, his parents died tragically, and when he went back to check on the situation, he was set up and killed by his own sister. Who would be able to understand the sorrow of rushing out and braving the wind and snow and being ambushed from all sides in their own clan? Who would be able to understand? After that night, Shui Xian and Master Yun were convinced that Shui Shaoran was already dead. After that, they even set up a mourning hall, and Shui Xian wore mourning clothes to send her brother off. Shui Leihan sneered mockingly, but he felt that his heart was broken. So much so that even his laughter started to tremble. So in the future, Zihao and I traveled the world together. From a place where we had nothing, we fought for the family business we have today. In those years, we fought with Master Yun and Yuan Tianjia whenever we met. But none of us could kill the other. In the end, we fought until we became the first emperor, the only saint. Now, Zihao has already passed away, and now, the only saint has also become a target of scorn, the public enemy of the Heaven Imperial Court. The Saint Emperor Palace is also about to be completely destroyed and destroyed. Shui Leihan sighed. This Saint Emperor Palace. Most of its power was built by the Shui clan. When Shui Leihan said this, the room fell into a dead silence. For a long time, no words were spoken. Cough, cough. Shuiqi, who was behind him, suddenly coughed and said, "Back then, there should be a total of 8 brothers of the Shui clan outside, right?" "Yes," Shui Leihan said expressionlessly. "As for the others," Shuiqi's face twitched and said, "I can only confirm that 2 of them are no longer around. As for the others, I didn't get any definite news, and I didn't dare to ask you. You don't need to ask anymore." Shui Leihan was still expressionless. He said, "Except for you and me, the other brothers are long gone. Many of them died when their own sister hugged their heads and cried with them. This bitch!" Shuiqi gritted his teeth, his veins bulging, as if a curse was coming out from his throat. Tears also came out. The Prime Minister and General Lan were still silent. They were even shocked. They would never have thought that a woman, and the one who was known as the most beautiful woman in the world, would only be in her prime at that time. How could she do such a thing? How could she be so cruel as to watch her own clan being destroyed? How could she be so cruel as to kill her own brother with her own hands? Destroy her own home with her own hands? How could she bear to do such a thing? This was really something that normal people couldn't understand even if they racked their brains. They couldn't understand it at all. Chapter 2657. Cough, cough, cough. The Prime Minister coughed and hesitated, but in the end, he couldn't help but say, "Your Majesty, please forgive me. I really feel that such a woman and Guru Yun's viciousness are really a match made in heaven." He gritted his teeth and said, "I've experienced a lot in my life, and I can be said to have seen through the world. But for such a heartless person, it's really the first time I've heard of such a heartless person." Sigh. Shuiqi sneered. Cloud Shangren killed his own father and destroyed his own family. Shui Xian also destroyed her own family and killed all her brothers. This pair of man and woman actually became husband and wife. This is really. The veins on Shuiqi's forehead bulged, as if he had used up all his strength, but he still couldn't finish his sentence. Really what? They're really a match made in heaven! Shui Leihan slapped the table in front of him. The table was fine. But the ruins thousands of miles away from the East Emperor Palace suddenly collapsed and turned into dust. That's the whole story, Izichen said. Shui Leihan looked at his two most important officials and said softly, Shui Shaoran is Shui Leihan, and Shui Leihan is Shui Shaoran. This is East Emperor's biggest secret. Your Majesty. Both of them had mixed feelings, and at this moment, they almost shed tears. You've suffered. Shui Shaoran became Shui Leihan. The carefree snow eventually turned into snow with tears, every drop cold. How carefree and unrestrained was the former? What a tranquil state of mind. The latter, however, was so disheartened, and so cold and sorrowful. What kind of changes did a person have to go through to change like this? It was hard to imagine. That was definitely not a huge blow that a normal person, an ordinary person, could bear. This was undoubtedly the pain of His Majesty East Emperor's life. The deepest pain, the pain that couldn't be made up for. His Majesty didn't have to reveal these secrets. But in the previous battle, he let Shui Xian'er go because of family ties. In order for her to not be haunted by it, he had opened up this scar himself. At this moment, the Prime Minister and General Lan felt guilty and regretful, but they were also deeply touched. Thank you, Your Majesty! The two of them had a lot of things they wanted to say, but when the words reached their mouths, they felt like they couldn't say anything. In the end, they could only bow with tears streaming down their faces. There was no need to say anything else. His Majesty Donghuang's regard for all of them had already been made clear, so there was no need to say anything more. The two of them finally understood why His Majesty the Donghuang had insisted on naming the Tai vast snow. This was the reason. The entire world was covered in snow, Shui clan. It doesn't matter anymore. Shui Leihan laughed bitterly and said, Anyway, so many years have passed since then. What I feel the most regretful about, the one I can't let go of the most, is still Zihao, my brother Zihao. The Prime Minister and General Lan lowered their heads at the same time. Back then, the Purple Firmament Heavenly Emperor and the East Sovereign were sworn brothers. Looking at the world, even a sage would not dare to look directly at them. However, that heroic and majestic Heavenly Emperor of the Purple Firmament ultimately still fell under the scheme of the sage monarch and perished on the Heavenly Devil battlefield. This time, the strength of the Holy Emperor Palace has been completely uprooted by us. The various forces of the Holy Emperor Palace are also being disintegrated and destroyed now. Shui Leihan calmed himself down. He said, This time, the actions of the whole world. The various branches of the Holy Emperor Palace have always been exposed under the eyes of the world. I believe none of them can escape. Except for the Sage Monarch and the Divine Empress, the others have basically been wiped out. It can be said that there are not many problems left. Shui Leihan said solemnly. In the future, we only need to be careful. The day when we finally destroy these two people will be the day when the world will be at peace. The only thing left to worry about is the battle with the extraterrestrial demons. The Prime Minister and General Lan nodded at the same time. This time, in the battle against the extraterrestrial demons, I want to lead the troops personally. Shui Leihan said word by word, a sharp light shooting out from his eyes. I want to personally take revenge for my brothers. The Prime Minister and General Lan were stunned for a moment upon hearing this. Logically speaking, in such a decisive battle, General Lan should be the one leading the troops. The East Sovereign did not need to personally come to the battlefield at all. Leading the troops personally always meant that victory was not an option. The pressure was immense. And the risk was also the greatest. However, no one could refute the East Sovereign's reason at this moment. Take revenge for his brothers. Slaughter all the extraterrestrial demons. With the relationship between the Purple Cloud Heavenly Emperor and the East Sovereign, this was completely reasonable. There was no way to even dissuade him. I also want to fight a bloody battle at the place where my brothers fought. Shui Leihan's eyes were calm but firm. Blue Bridge. Here. General Lan answered solemnly. Immediately reorganize the East Sovereign Army. All the elite troops of the Eastern Royal Heavens are to be streamlined again. Assemble this batch of elites into one army. In this battle, the East Sovereign will not return if the extraterrestrial demons are not destroyed, Shui Leihan said solemnly. Your Majesty! The Prime Minister and General Lan knelt down at the same time. Shui Leihan's words were too serious. Even though they knew they should not dissuade him, they still had to. The East Sovereign will not return if the extraterrestrial demons are not destroyed. What a heavy oath this was. There's no need to say any more. I've already made up my mind. Shui Leihan's eyes were extremely resolute. The two of them took a deep breath and hesitated for a moment, not knowing if they should say a few more words of persuasion or fully prepare the troops for war. Prime Minister! Shui Leihan looked at the Prime Minister. I believe you know what is needed for this battle. All the logistics, everything will be handed over to you. Do you understand this heavy responsibility? The Prime Minister's expression was solemn. Rest assured, Your Majesty. With the reserves of the Eastern Royal Heavens over these years, it is enough to support the largest-scale battle for 30 years. I guarantee that nothing will go wrong. There would be absolutely no oversights, and no worries for the future. If there is, I will use the lives of 18 generations of my family to atone for my sins. Shui Leihan nodded satisfactorily. I've long known that the Prime Minister's work is the most reassuring. General Lan, from now on, the success or failure of everything will depend on you. General Lan's expression was resolute. Rest assured, Your Majesty. I swear on Blue Bridge to complete the mission. Good. Shui Leihan was silent for a moment before he said, Before this battle, we must make arrangements in advance. I plan to let Vast govern the Eastern Royal Heavens from today onwards and appoint the Crown Prince to be in charge of all matters of the Eastern Royal Heavens. Your Majesty! This doesn't seem appropriate. The Prime Minister and General Lan were shocked to the extreme at the same time. They knelt on the ground. Your Majesty is in the prime of your life. Even if you personally lead the troops into battle, you will definitely be able to return safely. Please reconsider the matter of appointing the Crown Prince. Stop talking and listen to me first. Shui Leihan's expression was serene. He said, The luck of this battle is unknown. Thinking about the defeat before thinking about the victory is a military principle. Besides, I can't be considered in the prime of my life now. My body may be strong, but my heart is already old. Especially after avenging my brothers this time, even if I return safely, I don't have the heart to continue on in this position for long. It's also time for Vast to take charge. I'm still very relieved to hand this position over to him. Shui Leihan smiled. Even if I personally lead the troops into the battle against the extraterrestrial demons. If we win this battle, the Eastern Royal Heavens will celebrate and Vast will ascend to the throne. If we lose this battle, the day Shui Leihan dies in battle will be the day Vast will ascend to the throne. Do you all remember this? Shui Leihan's tone turned cold as he looked at the two of them sternly. The Prime Minister and General Lan choked and couldn't speak, tears streaming down their faces. No matter the outcome of this battle, Prime Minister, I'll need you to take care of Vast. Shui Leihan looked at his right hand and right-hand men with sincerity. He sighed and said slowly, For so many years, we have been monarch and minister in name, but in reality, we are brothers. The two of you must help me with this. The Prime Minister and General Lan's tears flowed like spring water as they cowed out loudly. We can only do our best until we die. When the time comes, Shui Qi, you must also gather all your subordinates and assassins to follow me into battle, okay? Shui Leihan turned to look at his younger brother. I understand. Don't worry. Shui Qi rolled his eyes. I knew it long ago. Even if you die, you'll drag me along with you. Forget it, I'll follow you through the mountains of swords and seas of fire. Who asked you to be my elder brother? You. Shui Leihan almost couldn't help but raise his hand to give him a good beating. But suddenly he laughed again. You little brat, we'll go through the mountains of swords and seas of fire together. If we win this battle, we'll rest in the hidden forest spring and travel the world together. If we lose this battle, we'll go see our parents together. Shui Qi's eyes were a little red. He said in a nasal voice, When the time comes, what if our parents ask, Where's your sister? How should we answer? Do you know how to answer? Shui Leihan looked at him in a daze. Shui Qi sniffed and said, So, it's best to win. With that thought, the two brothers smiled with tears in their eyes. Looking at the two brothers in front of them who had gone through so much, the Prime Minister and General Lan were shocked. They couldn't help but burst into tears too. Now that the two brothers who had gone through so much were here, they smiled and talked about their past. Oh, right, when you came in just now, why did you look a little strange? You don't look like the Prime Minister of Dongwang Heaven who usually doesn't change his expression even if a mountain collapses in front of him. Dongwang smiled and asked the Prime Minister, Did something happen? The Prime Minister coughed and was stunned. Then, sweat actually appeared on his face. This matter, he said just now that it was really nothing, but now, he didn't know how to say it. He stammered and said, Yes, there is indeed something. I just received the news. Shui Leihan said with great interest. What is it? Tell me directly. Oh, it's like this. The Prime Minister stammered and said, After the battle with us, the Divine Empress Shui Xian'er fled. But for some reason, she was recognized in the 100,000 mountains and was surrounded. Chapter 2658. Shui Leihan frowned and said, Oh? Then, very coincidentally, the former heavenly emperor of Green Cloud, Emo Qingqing, passed by here and immediately attacked. Shui Xian'er, her physical body was destroyed. The Prime Minister stuttered as he spoke. He was cursing in his heart. Who the hell gave me this news? I was delayed for a while, and then I came excitedly to report this news. But first, I heard a story from His Majesty. The real problem was, after hearing this story, he felt as uncomfortable as if there was a bomb in his mouth. When he finally finished, the Prime Minister lowered his head nervously, waiting for His Majesty's reaction. Such an outcome is good. Shui Leihan sighed deeply, then fell silent for a while and said, Besides, she still has a doppelganger, so she won't die for a while. Besides, even if Emo Qingqing really killed her, she deserved it. Retribution is right in front of me, so how can I go and find Emo Qingqing to avenge her? How can I not have a sense of right and wrong? Prime Minister, you're thinking too much. The Prime Minister heaved a sigh of relief and said, Your Majesty is wise, I'm stupid. When His Majesty was silent just now, the Prime Minister was almost sweating profusely. Fortunately, His Majesty's reaction wasn't that intense. Eh? Oh right, why did Emo Qingqing suddenly appear in that place? Shui Leihan asked in surprise. This? I don't know. The Prime Minister was also very confused. At this moment, a guard reported outside the door. Your Majesty, the former Heavenly Emperor of Green Cloud, Her Majesty Emo Qingqing, is outside seeking an audience. Hearing this, the four people present were all stunned at the same time. Emo Qingqing suddenly appeared. Seeking an audience with Shui Leihan? What did she want to do? Especially the Prime Minister and General Lan, they didn't know whether to laugh or cry. They even felt that the world was really strange. This fellow had just destroyed the physical body of someone else's sister, and then she came to seek an audience with her biological brother, and there were two of her biological brothers here. This is really, that was awesome. At this moment, the two pillars of the Eastern Royal Heavens both had these words in their hearts. They were exactly the same. Quickly invite her in, Shui Leihan said hurriedly. No matter what, Emo Qingqing was here. They were all distinguished guests. Brother Shui. Emo Qingqing stood outside the East Imperial Palace with her hands behind her back. This former celestial emperor was currently dressed in plain clothes. His green robes fluttered in the wind, giving off a transcendent aura of transcendence. Such an outfit actually made Shui Leihan feel a little envious. Seeing Shui Leihan come out, Emo Qingqing smiled and cupped her hands. Brother Shui actually came out to welcome me personally. Emo Qingqing really doesn't dare. I'm flattered, ha ha ha. It's rare for Brother Emo to visit us from afar. Your presence brings light to our humble Eastern royal heaven. Shui Leihan warmly welcomed Emo Qingqing in. After exchanging a few pleasantries, he asked, But I wonder why Brother Emo is here. Nothing else. It's just that this little brother's addiction to being an official has kicked in. I'm here to ask Brother Shui for a high-ranking official position. Emo Qingqing smiled and said, Brother Shui, please appoint me as the Grand Marshal of the Eastern Royal Heavens Army. How about it? Cough, cough, cough. The moment these words came out, Dongwang Shui Leihan, the Prime Minister, and the Great General all started coughing at the same time. The Prime Minister and Great General Lan really didn't expect that Emo Qingqing would actually say such a thing. This was too direct, too unrestrained, too. Wasn't it too? A celestial emperor of a generation, even if he was just the previous celestial emperor or a has-been celestial emperor, would definitely not run to another world to request to be the Grand Marshal of the army. However, Emo Qingqing did so. Moreover, he did it so calmly and brazenly. She did it right in front of Dongwang and Shui Leihan. Dongwang Shui Leihan stared at Emo Qingqing. The two of them stared at each other for a long time. They were speechless for a long time. Shui Leihan suddenly smiled relaxedly. Brother Emo. Shui Leihan smiled. Logically speaking, we've been brothers for so many years. If you make such a condescending request, there's definitely no possibility of me rejecting it. But, in this situation now, it's not possible. Emo Qingqing's expression didn't change. She asked in a low voice, Oh? Why not? Shui Leihan laughed out loud. It's because Brother Emo has really come at the wrong time. Just a moment ago, I snatched the position of the Grand Marshal of the Eastern Royal Heavens from the Blue Sky Bridge. Shui Leihan laughed. But if Brother Emo doesn't mind taking a step back, I can appoint you as the Deputy Commander of the Eastern Imperial Heavens Army. How about that? Emo Qingqing was stunned. She pointed at Shui Leihan and laughed. Shui Leihan, you're actually one step ahead of me. Good, good, good. My cultivation isn't as high as yours, and my scheming isn't as deep as yours. It's worth it to be your deputy. Deputy Commander it is. I'll do it too. Shui Leihan put his arm around her shoulder and said with a smile, I'm afraid it's not that you don't mind being the Deputy Commander. I think you, even if it's a small soldier, you'll do it too. In the battle to destroy the extraterrestrial demons, to be a small soldier or a Deputy Commander, a marshal is nothing more than contributing to the imperial court. It's just a title. Emo Qingqing laughed loudly. Obviously, she didn't mind at all whether she was a marshal, a deputy commander, or even a small soldier. They were all old friends for 1,000,000 years. Whatever the other party was thinking, as long as they didn't deliberately hide it, it could be said that they could tell at a glance. One sentence was enough to explain too many things. Emo Qingqing's wish was very simple. She hoped to go to the battlefield of the purple cloud heavens and fight to the death with the extraterrestrial demons. However, Emo Qingqing knew herself well. With her commanding ability, if she were to purely be a small soldier, it would really be too much of a pity. It would be a waste of her talent. Since it was a battle against the extraterrestrial demons, then she should unleash her own ability and battle power to the maximum. At this time, she really didn't care about her own problems anymore. How to maximize efficiency was the problem that a ruler needed to consider. And Shui Leihan already knew what Emo Qingqing's intentions were when she said the first sentence. However, the person leading the army in this battle wasn't Lan Tianqiao but Shui Leihan himself. Emo Qingqing's ability might be above Lan Tianqiao's, so she naturally deserved the position of marshal. However, now that the one leading the army was Shui Leihan, it was a different matter. Shuai Leihan asked Mo Qingqing to be his deputy not only because he agreed to Mo Qingqing's request to participate in the battle, but also because he hoped to have Mo Qingqing's help to make up for his shortcomings. Shuai Leihan himself was also a master of the art of war. However, he had been an emperor for too long and had long been used to making arbitrary decisions. He wasn't used to hearing unpleasant words. In fact, in the eastern royal heavens, there was really no one who dared to say unpleasant words to him. However, on the battlefield, a moment of carelessness could lead to a complete defeat. Mo Qingqing's timely arrival was the best compliment for Shuai Leihan. If Mo Qingqing was the marshal, she would have the same concerns. The two of them were a perfect pair, making up for each other's shortcomings and reminding each other to ensure that nothing went wrong. Behind them, the Prime Minister and Great General Lan were both beaming with joy. This was really a great help that fell from the sky. Mo Qingqing laughed without any reservations. She waved her hand and said, "Since I'm the deputy marshal, I should have some strength. Those outside, come over and listen to His Majesty's arrangements. Enter your respective army and do what you need to do." As she waved her hand, the tens of thousands of soldiers stopped in the sky and landed with a whoosh. This army was directly under Mo Qingqing's command. They were also her most loyal subordinates all these years. Back then, after Ao Xieyun took over the clear sky heavens and ascended to the position of Heavenly Emperor, Mo Qingqing had personally persuaded Ao Xieyun to keep his people. Most of the clear sky heavens experts stayed, but these tens of thousands of people would rather die than continue to stay in the clear sky heavens and serve Ao Xieyun. "We are the Heavenly Emperor of the clear sky heavens, Mo Qingqing's people. We will always be. We will never be the evil Cloud Heavenly Emperor's people. Even if we die, we won't be." These people's attitudes were firm. If they didn't let them follow, they would rather commit mass suicide than change their allegiance to another master. Her persuasion was ineffective. Helpless, Mo Qingqing could only bring these people away from the clear sky heavens. Other than being Mo Qingqing's loyal subordinates, these people were all capable experts. Every one of them had at least the strength of a saint. Back then, if Mo Qingqing had really fought Ao Xieyun to the death, with just these people's help, even if they couldn't deal with Ao Xieyun himself, the number of Ao Xieyun's high-level subordinates would probably be the same as this group of people. And this was the most conservative estimate. The overall strength and quality of these people were evident. So many loyal subordinates. Shuai Leihan sighed deeply. "Generals, brothers, you are not my subordinates here. From this moment onwards, we are all brothers in the same trench. We will go to war together. We will destroy the extraterrestrial demons together. We will revive the clear sky heavens together. This is everyone's common goal. We will go to war together. We will destroy the extraterrestrial demons together. We will revive the clear sky heavens together. We will fight for the common goal." All the soldiers of the clear sky heavens raised their arms and shouted, their momentum overwhelming the sky. Originally, everyone still had a lot of misgivings about coming here. To the eastern royal heavens, they were after all outsiders. There were so many of them and everyone's strength was not ordinary. It was reasonable for the master to be a little wary and apprehensive about coming here abruptly. Especially, according to rumors, our Heavenly Emperor and the East Sovereign were rivals in love back then. Although they didn't know what was going on, everyone had heard of this rumor before. But with this sentence from the East Sovereign, all their misgivings and doubts disappeared in an instant. "After the great battle, everyone is free to leave," Shuai Leihan said loudly. "But I'll say this first. Whoever doesn't come to drink my farewell wine before leaving, even if I have to go all over the world, I will find him and force him to death with wine. I will do what I say. Let's see who dares to come and try if my wine is enough and strong enough." You're tuning into the Phoenix Nights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.